Chapter 1141. On this battlefield, return to void final stage mighty figures were the true threats to Su Xiaolan. She had to get rid of as many of these threats as possible. Frost god Zhuama of the Western Dragon Forest was going to die here. Enlin put on his illusionary star robe and spread open his wings of wind. The power of the Kuan Peng enshrouded his entire body, and he flew with all his might to just barely keep up with Ao Qingyu's speed. He is the frost god of the Western Dragon Forest only capable of running away now? A disdainful sneer appeared on Ao Qingyu's face. Zhuama remained unfazed, and it covered a distance of several dozen kilometers with each flap of its wings. At the same time, it was constantly blasting frosty energy blasts out of its backside to impede Ao Qingyu's pursuit. Ao Qingyu was flexing and disdainful with his words, but Zhuama just farted in response. One was a verbal insult, while the other was a physical and chemical insult. However, in any case, the distance between them was still shrinking. On one hand, Ao Qingyu was indeed slightly faster than Zhuama after unleashing his mystic technique. On the other hand, Zhuama was actually injured, so its speed was becoming slower and slower. Howl! Zhuama suddenly raised its head and let loose a long howl into the sky. A cold light flashed through Ao Qingyu's eyes, and he instantly drew his sword. At this distance, it was within his attack range. A sword projection that looked like a rainbow piercing through the sun cut through the sky and landed on Zhuama's ice wings. Whoosh! Blood splattered through the air. Zhuama let loose a pained cry as its body plummeted toward the ground. It's bleeding? Enlin was a little surprised to see this from extremely far away. However, in the next instant, the severed wings suddenly flew back into the ice and frost dragon's body before converging to form a pair of living wings again. It flapped its wings and continued to flee. Hee hee, you won't be able to escape from me. Ao Qingyu chuckled coldly as he unleashed over 100 sword strikes toward Zhuama. Zhuama opened its mouth and spat out a small snowball like a cannonball. In the next instant, the huge ice and frost dragon was sliced into over 100 pieces by Ao Mingyu. As the snowflakes shattered and fluttered in the air, the little snowball cracked open. A small ice dragon jumped out from the snowball before quickly flying into the distance. That little ice dragon was the true form of the frost dragon Zhuama. Enlin's horizons were once again widened when he saw this. Zhuama had too many tricks up its sleeve. What a good move, cicada shedding. Ao Qingyu's expression shifted and he gave chase again. This time, the gap between them was a little too wide, and there was a very good chance that he would lose them. Howl! Zhuama raised its head to the sky and roared again. Its voice was ethereal and distant. She then turned around to look at Ao Mingyu with a hint of smugness and mockery in her eyes. She transformed into a massive dragon that was 5 kilometers in length again, and she was just about to fart at Ao Qingyu to humiliate him. However, just as she was about to raise her butt, a sharp pain suddenly shot through her stomach. Pooh! The mixture of blue liquid suddenly exploded from the hole. Ao Qingyu was astonished by this. He had thought that he was about to face a terrifying blast of extreme cold energy, but it turned out to be Zhuama's excrement. Left with no choice, he could only draw his sword and cut off the feces. Zhuama's tears gushed out like a fountain after it had shat on itself. At this moment, a man shrouded in black aura rushed over with the flowing wind sword in his hand. Wind sword. He slashed his sword down, and a massive gash was sliced into Zhuama's body. Howl! Zhuama howled in pain as it swung its wings toward Enlin. The devastating power imbued within the wings made the space within a radius of 5 kilometers twist and crack open. Enlin's body dissipated into white mist and disappeared on the spot. Mist immortal technique. Enlin, don't try to steal my prey. Ao Qingyu finally let loose an enraged roar after a brief daze, and a sword projection struck Zhuama's body again. Zhuama let loose another pained cry as another massive gash was sliced into its body. Are you insane? Who's trying to steal your prey? I'm only helping you because I'm afraid that Zhuama will get away. Enlin materialized in the air again. Ao Qingyu faltered slightly upon hearing this before flared up with rage. You're going to help me? Do you think I'm a stupid C***NT? Tell me the truth, do you also have the dragon tribe bloodline? He didn't forget to use his sword net to slow Zhuama down as he spoke. It was all thanks to Enlin that Ao Qingyu was able to catch up to Zhuama again. Ao Qingyu wanted to kill Zhuama as quickly as possible and not give Enlin a chance to do so. After all, whoever ended Zhuama's life would obtain the power of dragons. Enlin definitely possessed the dragon tribe bloodline, and he was only here to absorb the power of dragons. Ao Qingyu felt like there was nothing wrong with his deduction. Enlin rolled his eyes upon hearing Ao Qingyu's words. I didn't think you were a stupid C***NT at first, but I've changed my mind after hearing what you've just said. You? Ao Qingyu really wanted to slice Enlin to pieces, but he couldn't as he had already sworn a Dao heart vow. How infuriating! Ao Qingyu flared up with rage, and he unleashed another sword strike toward Zhuama. Poor Zhuama! It had tried everything it could to escape from Ao Qingyu's grasp, but it was no longer able to fool Ao Qingyu, and it was struck by another sword strike. How? Zhuama was very aggrieved. Why did Ao Qingyu want to slice it just because it angered him? Give up. You won't be able to escape from me. Ao Qingyu wielded his sword and spoke in an indifferent voice as he stepped through the air. If you resist with your life on the line, at least, you'll die with some dignity. Zhuama stopped in its tracks in the face of Ao Qingyu's powerful aura. The area within a radius of over 50 kilometers was transformed into a world of ice and snow again as the power of extreme frost assaulted Ao Qingyu and Enlin in a frenzy. Enlin felt like the blood within his body was about to congeal. Not only had his movements been slowed down, but even his five senses had also become a lot more sluggish. This was a domain that had been imbued with Zhuama's power of the divine Tao, and it was so powerful that it could even break through his body of the war god's defenses. Ao Qingyu laughed heartily. That's what a true powerful being should be like. Do you really think I stopped because I was inspired by your words? Zhuama chuckled coldly. You think you can defeat me? A disdainful expression appeared on Ao Qingyu's face as he held his long sword before him. As long as he had his sword, he didn't fear any enemies. Ha ha! Zhuama might not be able to defeat you on its own, but what if I join forces? A powerful and authoritative voice sounded from the distance. Immediately afterward, dazzling white lightning lit up the night sky, making it appear as bright as day. A suffocating aura began to descend upon this world. Ao Qingyu's expression shifted drastically. Is that the Western Dragon Forest's lightning god, Zeus? Ha ha! That's right. Zhuama chortled with glee as resentment appeared in its eyes. Why do you think I let loose that peculiar roar when I was being chased? It wasn't to express my emotions, it was to send a distress signal to the Western Dragon tribe mighty figures. You sure are lucky to have Zeus, the god of slaughter and speed. Ao Qingyu, you have nowhere to run. Dark clouds obscured the entire sky as it spoke. Countless bolts of lightning erupted throughout heaven and earth. Within a sea of white lightning, the lightning god of the Western Dragon Forest, Zeus, had finally descended upon this world. Chapter 1142. Enlin raised his head to look up into the sky. Within a sea of dazzling lightning that was bright enough to blind the eyes, a lightning dragon that was slightly smaller than the frost and frost dragon appeared. The surface of its body was a glowing golden color. It was very dazzling and it even emitted boundless radiance. Terrifying white lightning revolved around its body, and it exuded a dazzling light. Zhuama, according to the rules of our tribe, you chose to call for help, so you have to join forces with me to attack this dragon. At the same time, I have to take the enemy's life. Zeus' voice was as deafening as a clap of thunder. Of course, Zhuama replied in an indifferent voice. The battle hadn't even begun, but they were already discussing who was going to kill the enemy. This was the most humiliating thing to the proud Ao Qingyu. Mr. Enlin, we can't just let this slide. Hold them off for me while I call for reinforcements from the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas. Ao Qingyu yelled. Enlin's expression darkened. You're trying to trick me like I'm an idiot? I can't just let this slide. Was this Flex King of the Dragon Court so confident in his ability to run away? Ha ha! You want to run? Sorry, none of you will get away. The golden dragon spread open its wings, and lightning fell like rain within a radius of over 50 kilometers. Countless bolts of white lightning stretched out and coiled before stabbing into the ground like nails. They sealed off space and formed a divine Tao cage that was both firm and destructive at the same time. Ao Qingyu's expression was extremely strained. There was no way he could defeat this dragon, but if he tried to run away, Zeus was extremely fast, and his chances of escaping were even slimmer. How about this? Enlin, you hold off Zeus, while I take care of Zhuama. Ao Qingyu knew that he couldn't get away, so he decided to fight to the death. Zeus was very powerful, even more so than Zhuama. However, he was also aware of Enlin's power, so he should be able to hold off Zeus for a short time. Hold off Zeus? Are you kidding me? Enlin couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ao Qingyu was getting a little panicked. But this is the best plan if we don't. I think the other plan is better. Enlin mercilessly interrupted. You hold Zhuama back, and I'll come help you after I kill Zeus. Ao Qingyu's mouth gaped open as if he had misheard. The golden dragon was just about to pounce toward Ao Qingyu and Enlin, and it chortled with glee upon hearing this. How ignorant and arrogant! Have I lost my mind from fear? Listen up, I am the god of the dragon clan, the ruler of thunder. You two worms dare to challenge the might of heaven? Die! Boom boom boom! Countless bolts of terrifying white lightning containing the most powerful might of lightning descended from the sky, as if they were going to completely crush the two ants on the ground into ashes. However, just as Ao Qingyu was about to unleash his sword strike, countless bolts of white lightning suddenly faltered in midair. The lightning was still dazzling, and the terrifying power tore tiny cracks in the void, but it still didn't fall. It was like a still and magnificent painting. Zeus and Zhuama were stunned. Ao Qingyu also stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before his eyes. You sure are forgetful. Dragon Court Flex King, have you forgotten my other title? Enlin chuckled. Holy! Tamer of Divine Lightning. Ao Qingyu finally recalled this title, and he spoke with excitement and urgency. F***ck your sister. It's the Lord of Transcendence. Enlin corrected with dark lines on his face. Compared to the strange title of Tamer of Divine Lightning, he preferred the title of Lord of Transcendence. I have a lot of little sisters. Ao Qingyu replied. Enlin, do you believe that I can kill Zeus now? Enlin heaved a sigh of relief before a smile appeared on his face. I do. Ao Qingyu's battle intent surged, and it was clear that hope had been reignited in his heart. How could this be? Impossible. As the lightning god, Zeus was unable to accept that he had lost his control over lightning. Following a resounding boom, countless bolts of terrifying white lightning descended from the sky, all of which were imbued with an extremely powerful power of the divine Tao. Wait, Zeus. I remember now. That human is Enlin from the Celestial Court. Zhuama's expression shifted drastically as it hurriedly tried to stop Zeus. However, it was already too late. The lightning had already fallen. Not only was the first attack frozen before Zeus' horrified eyes, but even the second attack was also completely frozen in space. The lightning god of the Western Dragon Forest? Enlin raised his head to look at Zeus, who was sitting in the sea of lightning, and extended a finger. Don't you know that I'm the lightning god of this entire world? I'm the heavenly lightning god. He flicked his finger, and all of the bolts of lightning immediately changed direction before crashing down upon Zeus with even more terrifying power. "No!" Zeus roared and was just about to spring into action when the sea of lightning beneath its feet suddenly surged and surged toward its body. Rumble! Lightning crashed relentlessly into Zeus' golden body. Just as Zeus was howling with pain and anguish, the lightning that was hurtling toward Enlil also crashed into its massive body, upon which a series of dazzling arcs of electricity exploded. Its extremely sturdy body was charred black, and it was even reduced to a mangled mess of flesh and blood. Energy exploded and lightning wreaked havoc. The dazzling lightning in the sky was like a white sun. "Zeus!" Zhuama let loose a cry of surprise and was just about to rush over to help. At this moment, a series of terrifying sword projections were already hurtling toward it, blocking its path. "I'm sorry, but with me here, you won't be able to disrupt the battle between Enlil and Zeus even if you die." Ao Qingyu held his sword before him as he spoke in an indifferent voice. Zhuama gritted its teeth as its mind raced. Why did that human have to be here? What kind of bad luck was this? However, Zeus was extremely powerful, and even if he were to face the sect leader of the 4-9 Immortal sect, he might not necessarily lose. There was still a chance, time to go for broke. "Then you'll have to collect Enlin's corpse." Zhuama didn't try to run anymore. It let loose an almighty roar before opening its mouth to blast forth a frosty vortex imbued with the power of extreme frost, which erupted with terrifying suction force to keep Ao Qingyu at bay. Ao Qingyu couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing that Zhuama was still pinning its hopes on Zeus. "What a stupid female dragon! Can't you tell what's going on?" The lightning dissipated. Zeus had many charred spots all over his body, and he spread open his wings as he stared intently at Enlil with undisguised astonishment in his golden eyes. "He can even control and enhance my divine Tao lightning? What kind of ability is this? What kind of ability is this?" Enlil rose into the air atop his brick, and his skin began to take on a scorching crimson-golden color as his hair began to stand on end, and his aura became more and more terrifying. "I've already told you that I am the super-heavenly lightning god, a god who wields the power of countless bolts of lightning in this world. You dare to call yourself a god with just these little bolts of lightning?" A disdainful smile suddenly appeared on his face. "Reaching the divine Tao through lightning? What a pity! In your current state, you're already an enemy who doesn't dare to use the power of the divine Tao against me." Enlil waved a hand, and the lightning cage that he had just constructed suddenly crumbled into a series of dazzling bolts of lightning, right before Zeus' astonished eyes before crashing down upon Zeus. Chapter 1143. The lightning cage also rebelled as it unleashed a torrent of attacks upon Zeus. Enlil was truly the epitome of what it meant to be the heavenly lightning god. He could summon all types of lightning. This lightning god of the western dragon forest was once again baptized by the fearsome lightning. Its massive, shimmering golden body had dimmed significantly, and its aura had also become a little feeble. Enlin's expression was quite grave. Zeus had indeed been injured, but it wasn't a lethal wound. "You've attained lightning of the divine Tao, but you can't use lightning. Let's see how bad *SS you can still be." Enlil stepped forward, and his entire body shot forth like a flaming meteor toward the golden dragon in the sky. Water God Cannon. Zeus opened its mouth to blast forth a ball of water that was imbued with terrifying power toward the oncoming Enlil. Enlil didn't take evasive measures. Instead, he unleashed a fist with all his might in his fire god mode. Boom! The fist struck the ball of water, and even the space around it began to tremor and crack. The immense power of the fist combined with the explosive power of the flames caused the ball of water to explode into countless splashes. Enlin's fist continued onward before striking Zeus' chest. Dong! A resounding boom erupted as the fist collided with the body of Enlil. Enlin's pupils contracted, and his body was sent flying by a burst of terrifying power. Ha 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 ha. Do you think I only know how to play with lightning? The muscles on Zeus' body began to bulge, and his entire body expanded slightly. So what if I can't use lightning divine Tao spell techniques? My diamond invincible divine technique will ensure that I'm invincible. Unlin shook his sore knuckles before abruptly stomping his foot into the air. Bam! Scorching heat waves surged for over a kilometer. His speed had also been elevated to the extreme, and the power of his fists continued to increase as his crimson golden arm became more and more dazzling. Humph! You still don't want to give up? My indestructible Vajra divine art can even withstand the impact of divine Tao, so how could it be something that you can break through? Zeus revealed a disdainful expression as he looked at Enlil, who was charging over once more. Enlil rushed in front of Zeus, and a tearing pain came from his arm. He felt that if he continued to accumulate power, his entire arm would not be able to withstand the terrifying power and explode. This was the real Qilin arm. 3 times Qilin arm fire god fist. Enlin's fist was as violent as the sun, and it directly smashed into Zeus' chest. Zeus ignored Enlin's attack. He retracted his claws and moved as fast as lightning. He wanted to seize the opportunity to grab hold of Enlil and tear him in half. An earth-shattering sound exploded. It was impossible to describe what kind of power this was. After it landed, it seemed as if it wanted to completely annihilate everything in its path into ashes. Destroy everything, crush everything. Crack! It was as though an indestructible barrier had shattered. The huge indestructible Vajra body began to cave in, and the terrifying fist force that passed through his body even caused 2 mountains dozens of kilometers away to collapse. Zeus' claws that were pouncing toward Enlil trembled violently, and his eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at the man in front of him. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Zeus wanted to say something, but when he opened his mouth, he spat out another mouthful of blood. It was clear that his internal organs had already been injured by the fist force. I heard that your indestructible Vajra divine art makes you invincible? Enlil grinned and retracted his fist. Then, he threw another punch at the huge dragon's caved-in chest. Boom! This time, Zeus could not hold on any longer. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body was sent flying backward by the huge force. Enlil followed up with another attack, and he continued to pounce toward Zeus. Another attack. 3 times Qilin arm fire god fist. Vajra divine dragon claw. Zeus roared and his dragon claws extended. Brilliant divine light shone from them as he slammed them toward Enlin's fist. An earth-shattering collision ensued. The sound of bones shattering erupted from Zeus' dragon claws, and it let loose a blood-curdling wail as it was knocked flying. However, Enlil was also knocked flying by the immense power of Zeus' Vajra divine dragon claw. His entire arm began to tremble involuntarily as a numb and tearing sensation began to appear. Enlin's expression became extremely grave. The Qilin arm fire god fist technique dealt too much damage to one's arm, so it couldn't be used repeatedly. Furthermore, Zeus' body was extremely powerful, so he wouldn't be killed by a simple punch or two. Zeus roared as he pounced toward Enlil again. Even though he had sustained quite a few injuries, he was even more violent and ferocious than before. Enlil had no interest in engaging in a battle between a man and a male dragon with Zeus again. Even though he had a chance to win, he would suffer a tragic fate. He had to choose another method to achieve victory. Only the deep-sea bomb that Lan Xiaoni had gifted him or one of his pay-to-win techniques would be able to inflict decisive damage on Zeus and end the battle quickly. There was only one bomb, and the rarer it was, the greater its value. So, I'll just have to pay for it. Enlil made up his mind in the blink of an eye. He had more than enough money. In the face of Zeus' pouncing attack, he launched another punch. This time, he didn't use flames to compress his body. Instead, it was just a normal punch. Enlil was knocked flying for several kilometers, and his body felt like it was falling apart. Ha ha ha! Are you out of energy? I'm going to tear you to pieces and swallow you into my stomach. I'm going to tear you to pieces and swallow you whole. Zeus roared with a ferocious glint in his eyes. At the same time, a long sword flashing with black lightning appeared in his hand. At the same time, a long sword flickering with dark lightning appeared in his hand. High-rank spirit artifact, fallen lightning soaring dragon sword. Enlin's aura began to climb explosively. 6 strikes of the war god, sword burial. 6 strikes of the war god, sword burial. Bam! With a crisp sound, the fallen thunder soaring dragon sword exploded. Zeus' expression faltered as he pounced toward Enlin. He didn't know why Enlin's sword had suddenly exploded, but a sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. Right at this moment, an inky black bolt of lightning pierced through the heavens. This was a bolt of pure black lightning that materialized into an inky black lightning sword. It was sharp, powerful, and imbued with the power of depravity and destruction. Zeus was struck by an indescribable sense of fear the instant he laid eyes on it. Western Dragon Forest Lightning God Zeus. Enlin extended a hand. Allow me to teach you how to use lightning. He clenched his hand. The pitch-black lightning sword left a deep and dark trail of destruction in the void. Howl! A golden light erupted from Zeus' body as he activated his diamond divine skill to its maximal extent. At the same time, he unleashed a burst of golden energy toward Enlin. He knew that this technique from Enlin was extremely threatening to him. However, something that astonished him even more happened. Enlin flicked a finger, and the power of the inky black lightning sword soared once again. That's right, using the sword burial technique wasn't the limit of this spell technique. There was another important reason why Enlin had chosen the Netherworld Lightning Dragon Sword. It could be used in conjunction with the lightning amplification technique. Just how powerful would the origin energy of the Netherworld be if he were to unleash all of the essence of a high-rank spirit tool before using the lightning amplification technique to enhance its power? Zeus looked at the oncoming lightning sword, and it was as if he could see a sinister smile on the face of an evil dragon that could lead people into the abyss behind the sword. Boundless frosty intent began to erode his entire body. It was flying through the air in the form of a lightning sword, but from a certain perspective, it was like a lightning black hole that was capable of destroying all things. The space in its path twisted and twisted before cracking open along the path of lightning. The inky black lightning sword appeared to be moving very slowly, but it was actually extremely fast, and it instantly pierced through Zeus' energy breath before striking Zeus' open mouth. Chapter 1144. The inky black lightning sword exploded in Zeus' mouth. There was nothing he could do about it. It was simply too fast for Zeus to dodge. The lightning imbued with the power of depravity and destruction exploded like an inky black lightning vortex, engulfing Zeus' head before engulfing his entire body. Heaven and earth seemed to have fallen into absolute darkness in that instant. Only Zeus' anguished wails reverberated through the air. Oike! Is it really that bad? Aochinyu's flesh crawled as he sensed the terrifying power, and he turned toward Zeus and Enlin with astonishment in his eyes. Zeus! Zhuama also let loose a cry of surprise. She was hoping that Zeus would be able to kill Enlin as soon as possible so that he could take some of the pressure off of her shoulders. But under these circumstances, Zhuama finally began to panic as she sensed the terrifying lightning-type spell technique. How could Enlin be so terrifying? On the outskirts of the realm of ice and snow, a figure was slowly approaching before hiding behind a huge rock. Enlin is battling another mighty figure again. This guy really doesn't know how to behave no matter where he goes. He doesn't even care about protecting himself. The woman harumphed lightly before continuing to survey the battle in the distance with a nervous expression. His opponent is a return to void final stage mighty figure, so I won't be able to intervene. I'll meet up with him after the battle is over. Speaking of which, he's growing so quickly. He can flex to return to void final stage mighty figures with ease now. Does everyone like flexing after reaching a certain level of power? The woman murmured to herself. She was none other than Su Xiaolan, who had entered the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm with Enlin. Su Xiaolan thought back to all of the mighty figures she had seen in the past, and none of them seemed to be keeping a low profile. Zeus' vital signs are becoming weaker and weaker. Enlin has most likely won. The inky black lightning gradually dissipated. A golden body fell from the sky. Zeus' entire body had been ravaged by the terrifying lightning, and his golden body had become extremely dim and devoid of any luster. His head had sustained the most severe injuries. His golden head had been reduced to a charcoal head, and his eyes had rolled into the back of his head. His mouth was gaping open, and his skin and flesh had been blasted apart, making him appear as if he had been disfigured. Boom! The ground tremored violently, and Zeus' body crashed into the ground, creating a massive crater. Zeus, he really lost? Zhuoma was in complete disbelief. The lightning mighty figure who had once dominated the entire western dragon forest had been crippled by Enlin lightning. Enlin materialized into mist and stood on Zeus' massive head before swallowing a few high-rank spirit pills. As he chewed on the pill, he looked down at Zeus and asked, "How is it?" This was a rather nonsensical statement, but it was full of dominance. Zeus' eyes gradually became clear again, and he opened his mouth angrily. "Arg! The goose is going to strangle you." Enlin looked at Zeus with a sympathetic expression. "Have you been blasted to the point where you can't even speak?" Zeus was trembling with rage, and his eyes gradually turned crimson with humiliation and fury. "You're not a dragon, so you won't be able to obtain the power of dragons even if you kill me. Instead, you'll become the sworn enemy of the entire western dragon forest. But if you let me go, I'll give you unimaginable benefits." Enlin stroked his chin thoughtfully. "You're right. If I kill you, I won't be able to obtain the might of a dragon." Zeus was delighted to hear this. At this moment, a red light shone in the night sky. The blood soul cross descended from the sky, crashing into Zeus' back, unleashing a peerless suppressive force. At the same time, a series of chains extended to bind the giant dragon. "Ow! What are you doing?" Zeus, who was suddenly tied up, struggled and roared in grief and indignation. "A dragon can be killed, but not humiliated. If you dare to do that to me, I'd rather die." Enlin's face darkened. "I feel like I've been insulted. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not going to kill you now. I just want to tie you up first, then find my Xiaolan and have her kill you. Wouldn't this give you a place to place your dragon power? Thanks for the reminder, old bro." Zeus' mouth gaped open in bewilderment. It turned out that its mouth was dry from talking, but it didn't manage to convince Enlin. Instead, it successfully gave Enlin an idea, and he decided to change someone else to kill it? Pfff, Zeus' body shuddered, and he threw up another mouthful of blood. The golden dragon gritted its teeth. "No, I advise you to calm down. This place is fraught with peril, and there are countless powerful beings in the western dragon forest. If you take me to find that Xiaolan, you'll definitely be surrounded and killed by powerful beings before you even get to see her. I'd advise you to let me go." "Enlin!" A crisp, pleasant cry suddenly sounded in the distance. Enlin was greeted by the sight of a beautiful figure flying toward him. "Xiaolan!" he yelled with excitement. Zeus, this western dragon forest lightning god, could sense the hatred that fate harbored toward him. "The heavens want me dead." Cough cough. Zeus coughed up blood from the corner of his mouth. He stared intently at the oncoming woman as his mind raced. Even now, he was still trying to think of a way to turn the tables. "Xiaolan, I didn't think you'd be nearby." Enlin waved at her with an elated expression. Enlin was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief upon seeing that Su Xiaolan was safe and by his side. "Your battle created such a massive commotion that I was able to detect it from over 500 kilometers away. Su Xiaolan flew over on her sword, and a wide smile appeared on her face, clearly indicating that she was also very elated. However, right at this moment, a terrifying crimson streak of light shot forth from Zeus' mouth. "Receive my curse, ha ha ha!" Zeus' skin began to crack open, and blood gushed forth, but he roared with excitement. This was a curse that it had unleashed upon Su Xiaolan after it had been sealed and drained of all of its energy. Even a return to void stage mighty figure might not be able to withstand this curse, let alone a soul formation stage cultivator like her. Only he could break this curse. As long as Su Xiaolan was cursed, he could use this as a threat to force Enlin to release him. This was his chance to turn the tables. Zeus looked forward with a scorching gaze. Holy flames then rose into the sky, accompanied by the faint cries of holy beasts. Pure and holy light lit up heaven and earth, almost blinding Zeus. This power did not belong to the soul formation stage at all. Under Zeus' dumbstruck gaze, Su Xiaolan destroyed the crimson streak of light with a single slash of her sword. "Xiaolan, are you all right?" "I'm fine." "Phew. That scared the hell out of me." "Enlin, keep the dragon under control. Don't worry, I'll give it another large water ball. Let's see how it's going to escape then." Enlin smiled. "To express my apology, I'll give this dragon to you. Are you happy?" I was so touched when I heard that." Su Xiaolan blushed slightly. "You're not touched now?" "Yes. Then give me a hug and a kiss." A shy expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she glared at Enlin. Zeus' mouth gaped open as he looked at the affectionate couple. Tears finally began to flow from his eyes. What kind of soul formation stage cultivators were these? Chapter 1145. The lightning god of the western dragon forest, Zeus, was now a sitting duck, and he had to watch as Enlin and Su Xiaolan flirted with one another. It had once imagined the tragedy of dying on the battlefield, and it had also imagined facing the dazzling might of the heavens on the path of seeking the Tao, unyielding resistance, and ultimately perishing. However, he didn't think that his ending would be a gift. This was a gift from a human to a human with a dragon tribe bloodline. Enlin was enraged by Su Xiaolan's gift. "Xiaolan, I'll leave this dragon to you. Hurry up and level up. Let's see how much power you'll receive after slaying this dragon," Enlin said in a generous manner. Su Xiaolan was a little concerned. "If I really kill it, will I receive too much power of dragons and my body won't be able to handle it?" She was afraid that Zeus would kill her. Zeus' body shuddered as he grasped onto this slim chance of survival. That's right. You've discovered the most important point. I'm a return to void final stage mighty figure, while you're just a soul formation stage cultivator. There's a vast difference between our cultivation bases, so how will you be able to contain my power? The woman's expression darkened upon hearing this. "Are you looking down on me?" "Zeus. I was a little worried, but now I'm going to prove myself. I don't believe that I won't be able to contain your power." Su Xiaolan spoke with a firm expression. Zeus, the golden dragon, really wanted to slap himself a few times. Ao Qingyu turned to Su Xiaolan with an envious expression. "Enlin sure is generous. He's giving up the life of a return to void final stage mighty figure just like that. Is this true love?" The death of any return to void final stage mighty figure was a monumental event that shook the entire world. Anyone who could slay a return to void final stage mighty figure in the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm could boast about it for 100 years. However, Enlin was willing to give up on such an achievement and an opportunity to obtain the power of dragons. Ao Qingyu was filled with admiration for Enlin, but at the same time, he felt like Enlin was an idiot. As for the possibility of Enlin being unable to absorb the dragon's power, no such thing exists. Ao Qingyu was already convinced that Enlin was also a special dragon tribe descendant. "Ah! Don't run!" Ao Qingyu suddenly let loose an enraged roar before flying toward a certain direction atop his sword. It turned out that the frost dragon, Zhuama, had finally decided to continue its escape after seeing that the situation was not in its favor. Roar! An ethereal and distant dragon roar once again swept through heaven and earth. The Zhuama began to call for help from its companions again, running and shouting for help. Ao Qingyu was almost beaten to death by Zhuama and Zeus, and it was only thanks to Enlin that he was able to turn the tables. He had almost lost his life here, so of course he wasn't going to give up, and he immediately gave chase. "Don't run, lowly dragon! Take my sword if you have the guts!" Ao Qingyu yelled. Zhuama continued to release frosty energy farts to impede Ao Qingyu's pursuit. The two of them disappeared into the distance. Enlin didn't follow them anymore. He had successfully found Su Xiaolan. In order to avoid any further complications, Su Xiaolan decided to take care of Zeus as soon as possible. She drew her dragon sparrow sword and slashed it down upon the golden dragon's head. Clang! The sound of a hard collision rang out. Su Xiaolan's sword struck Zeus's head, but she was knocked flying by the massive recoil force, and her dragon sparrow sword almost flew out of her hand. So hard! Only now did she realize what kind of opponent Enlin was facing. Even though his power had been restricted and he had been severely wounded, his body was still terrifyingly powerful. Hope reignited in Zeus's heart. "Don't waste your energy. Even return to void stage mighty figures can't break through my indestructible body. If you let me go, I can swear a Tao heart oath that from now on." Roar! Zeus didn't even get a chance to finish his sentence before he let loose a wail of anguish. The holy flames and lightning imbued the dragon's sparrow sword, elevating its sharpness to the extreme, and it finally managed to break through Zeus' indestructible diamond body upon striking the golden dragon's neck. No! A ferocious light burst forth from Zeus's eyes as he roared. Golden dragon might fluctuations proliferated forth in a frenzy, as if a ferocious beast were about to unleash the indignant roar of an apocalyptic beast. Su Xiaolan's hair danced behind her in the face of the terrifying dragon might. However, her expression was extremely calm, and there was no hint of panic on her face. Her eyes turned a pure golden color as she used the power of her true dragon bloodline to keep the dragon might at bay. Roar! A clear and majestic roar rang out. Enlin faltered upon seeing this. This roar had come from Su Xiaolan. My God! Was Su Xiaolan going to become a baby dragon? Enlin's heart was filled with complex emotions. At this moment, the dragon sparrow sword in Su Xiaolan's hand became even sharper, and it sliced through Zeus's neck. Her sword fell. An inky black fissure of close to 10 kilometers in length appeared on the ground below. Zeus's body and head were parted along with the earth below. Blood gushed forth like a fountain. Zeus's blood-curdling cries came to an abrupt halt. Everything returned to normal, except for the blood that was still flowing down the dragon's sparrow sword. The lightning god of the western dragon forest, Zeus, had fallen. A burst of invisible power seemed to have been guided by the laws of heaven and earth as it surged into Su Xiaolan's body in a frenzy, as if it were a boundless ocean. This was a return to void final stage mighty figure who had attained the power of the divine Tao. As such, the power of dragons imbued within his body was unimaginable to normal cultivators. Su Xiaolan immediately sat down to meditate and circulated all of the energy within her body to absorb this power of dragons. Enlin didn't know what was going on, but he could see that Su Xiaolan's golden eyes were becoming purer and purer, and her aura was becoming more and more vast. Su Xiaolan's dragon tribe bloodline had been fully activated. Enlin stood off to the side, and he felt as if he were facing an ancient dragon. Other people had female tigers in their homes, but he had a King ancient dragon in his home. Huff huff as Su Xiaolan inhaled and exhaled, it was like the exhalation of a huge dragon. Her cheeks became flushed, and a golden dragon aura began to rise from her body. A pained expression gradually appeared on her face, but her aura was still climbing. Is she going to make it? Unlin was quite nervous, but he couldn't do anything about it. He could only pace around anxiously. Perhaps this was the problem of happiness. Progressing in cultivation base was a good thing, but progressing too quickly and overexerting her power of dragons was a bad thing. Starving to death was a tragedy, but dying from overexertion was also a tragedy. Su Xiaolan suddenly let loose a delicate moan. Unlin turned to look at Su Xiaolan, and he found that there were beads of sweat on her forehead, and her forehead was slightly red. Is she really going to explode? Unlin gasped. Suddenly, the skin on Su Xiaolan's forehead cracked. Unlin's heart skipped a beat. Before he could do anything, another drastic change occurred. Two small horns that resembled golden jade protruded from Su Xiaolan's forehead. Unlin's mouth opened wide in shock. Are those dragon horns? Is Xiaolan finally going to transform into a dragon man? Xiaolan had half a true dragon bloodline, so it was normal for her to have an extra dragon horn. However, under Unlin's astonished gaze, Su Xiaolan suddenly stretched out her slender hand and slapped the dragon horn on her forehead. Smack! The golden jade-like horns were slapped back into place. Her fair forehead was smooth and glossy. "Don't come out, it's too ugly," Su Xiaolan murmured to herself. Unlin, she could do that. Chapter 1146. Unlin was stunned into awe by Su Xiaolan's actions. The inheritance of the power of dragons didn't end there, and invisible energy continued to flow into Su Xiaolan's body. She had rejected the dragon horns, but the golden color in her eyes became even more dazzling, as if she had transferred all of the characteristics of the dragon horns into her eyes. The power of dragons fused into Su Xiaolan's body and was refined by the holy vermilion flame. Only then was it truly assimilated by the true dragon bloodline. Her true dragon bloodline became more and more powerful, and at the same time, her meridians, bones, sea of vital energy, Tao foundation, consciousness, every single part of her body was enhanced. The dragon raised its head to look up at the high and mighty vermilion bird. The vermilion bird looked down at the coiled dragon on the ground for the first time. The two bloodlines began to meet one another's eyes. In that instant, Su Xiaolan's aura completely transformed. One of her eyes became as white as fire, while the other was pure golden. Her aura was as vast and boundless as the ocean. A pillar of golden light erupted from her body and soared into the heavens, as if it were going to pierce through the sea of stars and reach the very depths of the heavens. Crack! There was a crisp sound. It was as if a certain shackle had been broken. Unlin turned to Su Xiaolan as a bold speculation surfaced in his mind. Su Xiaolan and Unlin looked at one another with a hint of panic in their eyes, but also elation. I'm about to make a breakthrough. Unlin was astonished. You're using hacks. Su Xiaolan's cultivation base progression was simply unimaginable. She had progressed from the soul formation stage to the return to void stage in just 2 to 3 years. What kind of freak was this? Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes and ignored Unlin as she focused on making her breakthrough. Dark clouds began to surge in the sky above. As the Lord of Transcendence, Unlin had helped countless tribulation transcendents in his life, so he naturally stood guard. As a safety precaution, he also released Gundam 3 and Yao Ji to stand guard. Dark clouds began to gather in the sky. Unlin looked up at the dark clouds and was instantly stunned. Because the dark clouds were like an endless dark night, with no end in sight. Unlin released his divine sense to investigate, only to discover that he still couldn't see the end even after spreading it out for several hundred miles. He took a deep breath. F***CK. How big is this tribulation cloud? One had to realize that when he helped people transcend tribulations to the return to void stage, the tribulation clouds would usually cover an area of about 50 kilometers. However, Su Xiaolan's tribulation cloud was at least a few hundred miles wide. It's really exaggerated. I wonder how terrifying the lightning tribulation is. Unlin looked at the tribulation clouds that not only couldn't be seen with a glance, but he also couldn't see the end of it with his divine sense. He felt both gratified and slightly worried. Transcending a tribulation wasn't always about being awesome. There were two circumstances in which a return to void stage cultivator had the highest mortality rate. The first was when one had a weak foundation, and the second was when one was too freakishly powerful. The heavens didn't like fools, but they were also jealous of geniuses. Su Xiaolan clearly belonged to the second category. It was exactly because of this that Enlin was extremely nervous. Terrifying lightning surged within the dark clouds, and golden void lightning would tear through the inky black clouds from time to time, bringing a dazzling golden hue to the world. Enlin wasn't going to allow anyone to disturb his tribulation transcendence this time. He set up a simple spell formation in a radius of 150 kilometers. This spell formation only had one sound function, and all living beings that stepped into this domain would hear one sentence: "All intruders will be killed." In order to ensure safety, he would view all living beings that stepped into this domain as enemies, and he couldn't allow them to disturb Su Xiaolan's tribulation transcendence. Boom! An extremely dazzling bolt of golden void lightning fell from the sky and struck Su Xiaolan's body. Enlin could sense the power of the golden void lightning. This first bolt of lightning was already as powerful as the 30th bolt of lightning of a normal cultivator, as expected of a prodigy that even the heavens were jealous of. Su Xiaolan unleashed her true dragon wall to weaken the power of the golden void lightning before guiding the lightning into her body to a level that her body could withstand. Then, she used the lightning to observe the great Tao of heaven and earth and refine her body. Normal cultivators resisted tribulation lightning in order to survive, but prodigies had to use lightning to cultivate. Only then would they be able to observe the true meaning of the Tao of space amidst the destructive golden void lightning. Of course, everyone was fighting for their own survival at the end of the tribulation transcendence. There were 81 bolts of golden void lightning. Enlin was confident that none of the previous tribulation lightning would pose a problem for Su Xiaolan. He sat down not far away from Su Xiaolan and looked up at the sky in the distance. Just this tribulation transcendence alone had encompassed an area with a radius of several hundred kilometers. Would other return to void stage mighty figures be alerted by such a massive commotion? I'm not afraid of soul formation stage trash, and I don't believe that any soul formation stage cultivator would be stupid enough to come here to die after hearing my spell formation. But I can't say for sure if there are return to void stage mighty figures around. Anyone would want to take advantage of a situation like this, especially in such a cruel realm of slaughter. It's very likely that they would take this rare opportunity to kill the immobile tribulation transcendence cultivator. I can handle one return to void final stage mighty figure, but if there are two, Enlin murmured to himself as he became more and more uneasy. After a while, he shook his head again to get rid of the messy thoughts in his mind. The ancient Tai Chu dragon realm was so huge, and there were so few return to void final stage mighty figures, so his luck shouldn't be that bad. At this moment, Su Xiaolan had already safely transcended the 9th bolt of tribulation lightning. Enlin's heart stirred as he turned toward a certain direction. There really is someone who wants to die? Enlin was extremely enraged to find that the spell formation he had set up had been triggered. He stood up, and boundless flame power surged within his body as he prepared to unleash his fire god mode at a moment's notice. Right at this moment, a white figure began to appear. Enlin's entire body faltered upon seeing that figure. "Mr. Enlin, save me!" Ao Qingyu's hair and face had been charred black, and he yelled for help in an extremely disheveled manner. Behind him, a huge ice and frost dragon roared as it chased after Ao Qingyu. The entire heaven and earth was enshrouded in a domain of extreme frost, as if it were imbued with the power of heaven and earth. In another direction, scorching flames were scorching the heavens, as if they were going to incinerate the entire heaven and earth. "Ha ha! Ao Qingyu, you can't get away!" An extremely powerful dragon's roar erupted. I, the sun god of the western dragon forest, Apollo, will incinerate and purify you into my power. A golden flaming dragon with an extremely terrifying aura hurtled through the air like a miniature sun. Each and every breath it took caused the night sky to alternate between light and darkness, as if the sun in this world was being extinguished and reignited. Mr. and Lin, what a coincidence! We meet again. Same old rules, you take care of one, and I take care of the other. What do you think? Ao Qingyu flew toward An Lin with an urgent expression. An Lin, coincidence my King, a coincidence. You're doing this on purpose. You know I'm in this direction, so you purposely lured the monsters here. Mr. An Lin? Ao Qingyu called out in an urgent voice at the sight of An Lin's lack of response. An Lin, CK off. Chapter 1147. Ao Qingyu chased after Zhuama in high spirits, only to be chased by Zhuama's reinforcements not long after that. The only difference was that Xiaolan was transcending King tribulation. This starred Ao Qingyu wouldn't even spare his own niece. In the past, An Lin would have sold Ao Qingyu out immediately upon seeing him like this. Who would care about the trouble Ao Qingyu had stirred up? However, Su Xiaolan was transcending her tribulation now. He couldn't back down. Ao Qingyu had clearly also noticed this, and his expression became solemn. Mr. An Lin, your friend is also transcending her tribulation here. You can't back down from this battle. Let's join forces again and fight off these powerful enemies. An Lin really wanted to hack Ao Qingyu to pieces, but he repressed the urge to do so in the end. How powerful is this sun god Apollo? He's slightly more powerful than Zhuama. Zhuama has been severely wounded and is on the brink of collapse. Give me some time to stall Apollo, and I'll come and help you after I kill Zhuama. Ao Qingyu was elated to have survived this ordeal, and his tone also became a lot more relaxed, perhaps because he knew that An Lin was about to step in. Are there any other enemies? No. In the Western Dragon Forest, there are usually only 6 return to void final stage mighty figures who enter the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. We've already encountered Zhuama, Apollo, and Zeus, so we've encountered half of the most powerful beings there. The ancient Tai Chu dragon realm is so vast, so we won't be so unlucky as to encounter other. Shut up. Stop talking. Do you really have to do that? An Lin cut off Ao Qingyu's words with an enraged expression. Ao Qingyu faltered slightly upon hearing this. He didn't know why An Lin was so agitated. Had he said something wrong or analyzed something wrong? The ice and frost dragon and the flaming dragon were already upon them. An Lin placed the decapitated Zeus in front of the two of them before holding the massive charred head in his hand with a ferocious expression on his face. Ha ha! Ao Qingyu, you can't get away. The golden flaming dragon, which was as dazzling as the sun, suddenly stopped in its tracks as it stared at the scenes unfolding before it with horror and incredulity. Zeus? Zeus? Apollo stuttered a little as if he was too shocked. An Lin grinned. Today is a good day. I just killed Zeus, and I'm not even satisfied yet. Now, Apollo has come knocking on my door. How lucky. After saying that, he licked his lips with his tongue and looked at the fire dragon not far away with a fiery gaze. A chill ran down Apollo's spine. Even the powerful Zeus had been slain by that human. Zeus was the Lord of Lightning, a return-to-void stage dragon with unparalleled speed and speed. In a very short period of time, it imagined the whole sequence of events, and its expression changed greatly. Could it be that you're trying to lure us here to catch us all in one fell swoop? Ao Qingyu instantly understood An Lin's intentions, and he patted his sleeves with a cold smile on his face. I've been discovered. His gaze darkened, but his expression showed that he was looking down on all living things as if they were ants. But it's too late. You've already fallen into the trap set up by An Lin and me. You and Zhuama will die here today. Apollo's body shuddered, and the flames around its body dimmed slightly. Calm down, Apollo. Don't be intimidated by them. Enlil can control lightning, and that's why he was able to defeat Zeus. He's no match for you in terms of true power. Zhuama roared as it glowered at Ao Qingyu and Enlil with hatred etched on its face. I'm very calm, Apollo said in a solemn voice. Do you really think Zeus is the kind of guy who can't use lightning? Enlil is the sect leader of the 4-9 Immortal sect, the Lord of Transcendence. He's definitely not as simple as you think he is. Zhuama. It was over. Apollo had been intimidated. Zhuama's heart was filled with indignation and indignation. Apollo appeared to be analyzing the situation calmly, but it was actually already in a state of panic upon seeing Zeus' body. Zeus was the lightning god, while it was the sun god. There wasn't much of a disparity between them. If Enlil could kill Zeus, then he had a chance to kill it as well. Apollo had lived for over 100,000 years, and it had no intention of risking its life to see if this was a trap or not. Even if it wasn't a trap, it had to make it sound like a trap for the sake of its life and dignity. This is all a trap set up by Enlil and Ao Qingyu. Let's retreat. Apollo roared as it spread open its wings, upon which scorching waves of flames erupted forth for close to 10 kilometers before it turned around and fled. You're not getting away. Enlil and Ao Qingyu roared as they immediately gave chase. What else could Zhuama do? It could only follow Apollo with tears in its eyes. This was the third time that the Ice and Frost Dragon had been chased. Enlil and Ao Qingyu chased Zhuama and Apollo for over 500 kilometers before giving up. Ao Qingyu was very reluctant to give up. He really wanted to fight Zhuama again. After all, he had chased Zhuama 3 times and severely wounded it each time, so it would be a pity if he didn't take this dragon head with him. But Zhuama didn't want to fight him. During its escape, Apollo was assisting it, so it really was very difficult to kill Zhuama. Also, during its escape, Zhuama began to cry for help again. Ao Qingyu and Enlil were both very sensitive to its cries for help, and they finally decided to give up. Enlil returned to the place where Su Xiaolan was transcending her tribulation, and he sighed with emotion at the sight of Zeus' carcass on the ground. Who would have thought, brother Zeus, that you would be of great help to me even after your death? Ao Qingyu's lips twitched. That's too cruel. You're wasting the life of a dead mighty figure. Enlil stowed Zeus' carcass into his storage ring. The spoils of war were his, and the carcass was also his. If he encountered any dragon-tried mighty figures that he didn't want to fight, he could just pluck out Zeus' carcass and place it on the stage, and the atmosphere would probably be a lot more harmonious. Boom, boom, boom. One bolt of terrifying golden void lightning after another crashed into Su Xiaolan's body. Only then did Ao Qingyu notice the golden void lightning, and his expression shifted. How could this tribulation lightning be so powerful? Look at the scope of the tribulation clouds for yourself. Enlil chuckled. Ao Qingyu fell into deep thought as he looked at the boundless tribulation clouds. He discovered that Su Xiaolan's tribulation clouds were even vaster than his own tribulation transcendence. This struck the Dragon Court Flex King with a sense of defeat. So be it if Enlil was a supremely talented freak, but who would have thought that his Dao partner would also be a supremely talented freak? One bolt of terrifying golden void lightning after another crashed down upon Su Xiaolan's body. Su Xiaolan was slowly beginning to show signs of collapse. The lightning might accumulated within the dark clouds in the sky was so terrifying that even Enlil and Ao Qingyu were feeling a little fearful. Gundam 3, how many bolts of tribulation lightning are there now? Enlil asked. The 77th bolt has just passed, Gundam 3 replied. Only 77 bolts? Ao Qingyu's eyes widened. Thinking back, the final bolt of tribulation lightning he had transcended was probably only this powerful, right? Enlil nodded with a grave expression. That bolt of tribulation lightning just then was already powerful enough to kill a rookie return to void stage mighty figure. The next bolts of tribulation lightning would be even more terrifying. Chapter 1148. The 78th bolt of golden void lightning. Golden lightning tore through the heavens like a destructive claw falling from the sky, and the space in its wake crumbled as a series of inky black spatial rifts appeared. Su Xiaolan gripped her dragon sparrow sword, and her aura condensed as her sword blade flashed through the air like a bolt of lightning. It was so fast that it was only a blur in Enlin's eyes as she slashed through the divine lightning. The descending bolt of golden void lightning was sliced in half just like that. The 2 bolts of golden void lightning continued to fall toward Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan's holy flame feather cloak and true dragon barrier appeared at the same time. Boom! An earth-shattering boom erupted. The divine lightning was weakened by the feather cloak and the barrier, but it was still extremely powerful, and it wreaked havoc on Su Xiaolan's body. Su Xiaolan gritted her teeth, and patches of charred skin appeared on her fair skin. Her body swayed slightly, but she managed to hold on, and her aura became even more powerful. She's already in such a sorry state, why aren't you helping her? Ao Qingyu couldn't help but ask. He knew about Enlin's reputation as the Lord of Transcendence. Let's wait a little longer. Enlin looked at Su Xiaolan with a hint of trust in her eyes. Su Xiaolan didn't need his help right now. The 79th bolt of divine lightning lit up the entire heaven and earth. After the lightning dissipated, Su Xiaolan stood on her sword and panted heavily. Her black hair fell to her waist like a waterfall, and her aura was suffused with a sense of rebirth and transcendent power. Golden lightning split the sky. The 80th bolt of lightning tore open a crack that stretched for dozens of miles in the dark clouds. Inside the crack was an endless golden light. Terrifying lightning converged above Su Xiaolan's head. Hey hey hey! Is this the return to void stage tribulation transcendence? That's insane. Ao Qingyu's eyes widened as he stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before his eyes. He had only wanted to take a look at the tribulation transcendence before leaving. But now, his heart was in his throat, and he couldn't take his eyes off of it. Enlin glanced at the onlooker beside him and didn't say anything. He continued to look at Su Xiaolan. He was also very conflicted as to whether he should make a move or not. From Su Xiaolan's eyes, he saw her desire to face the lightning. Yes, Su Xiaolan planned to bear it herself and didn't want Enlin to intervene. But Enlin was really worried. The lightning power in the depths of the sky struck Enlin and Ao Qingyu with a sense of peril. For Su Xiaolan, who was only at the soul formation pinnacle stage, there was no need to elaborate on just how terrifying this power was. Golden lightning tore through the sky and descended from the sky. The dazzling golden light dyed the earth with a layer of gold. In the end, Enlin did not choose to make a move. He quietly watched as the lightning fell on Su Xiaolan. On the vast land, the green robe danced like a green lotus in full bloom. Golden lightning flashed through the air before landing on the green-robed woman's body. The woman raised her head to face the divine lightning without any fear on her face. Her petite figure stood tall and straight, giving her an indomitable spirit. In that instant, Enlin was momentarily entranced, as if he had just been drawn into a painting. Boom! The earth within a radius of 5 kilometers was pulverized by the golden void lightning. The 80th bolt of golden void lightning dissipated. The green-robed woman was still standing with her sword in hand. That's right, Su Xiaolan had withstood the terrifying lightning tribulation with her own power. How terrifying! To think that there is someone in this world who can withstand such a terrifying golden void lightning tribulation. Even the proud Ao Qingyu couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Of course! She's my Dao partner. Enlin's expression was filled with pride and glee. He looked at the woman in the distance with a smile. Su Xiaolan has already transcended 80 of the 81 bolts of golden void lightning with her own power. There is only one left, so her tribulation transcendence is already halfway done. His voice had only just fallen when a dragon's roar erupted in the sky. Howl! boundless dragon might seem to be imbued with some kind of inviolable will of heaven and earth, and Enlin and Ao Qingyu's hearts trembled involuntarily. Immediately afterward, a golden lightning dragon tore through the clouds and descended upon this world. Its appearance brought light to heaven and earth, as if it were the embodiment of light. Even though it appeared to be very bright and majestic, the power imbued within it was extremely intimidating. This golden void lightning dragon was super ferocious. Just as Enlin and Ao Qingyu came to their senses with great difficulty, a crisp cry erupted from the heavens above, and white lightning pulverized the dark clouds within a radius of over 50 kilometers. A white lightning vermilion bird stood proudly in the sky, looking down at the lightning dragon down below. The lightning was imbued with the power of extreme yang, and even the space around it began to twist and warp. The white lightning vermilion bird and the golden void lightning dragon circled in the sky as they looked down at Su Xiaolan. "Is this what you meant by your tribulation transcendence being halfway done?" Ao Qingyu couldn't help but ask. Enlin. He really wanted to slap himself a few times. Su Xiaolan was initially brimming with confidence, but her features instantly paled at the sight of the lightning dragon and lightning vermilion bird in the sky, and she turned toward Enlin for help. She definitely wouldn't be able to withstand this tribulation lightning on her own, so she had to ask for reinforcements. "Don't panic, Xiaolan, I'm here." Enlin flew toward Su Xiaolan without any hesitation. F***ck off. What happened to the 81 bolts of divine lightning? The lightning dragon and lightning vermilion bird in the sky clearly count as 2 bolts. That's against the rules. Enlin pointed up into the sky and cursed. Was that the point? Su Xiaolan's lips twitched as she explained. The divine lightning is born from one's Tao intent. My tribulation lightning might have been triggered by the true intents of the 2 bloodlines within my body, thereby triggering some kind of mutation. Enlin nodded. He had encountered something like this before. When Lu Qianhuan was transcending her tribulation to the soul formation stage, the divine lightning had transformed into a lightning sword, presumably because the sword intent was too powerful, thereby triggering a mutation. This kind of treatment was only available to extremely supremely talented beings. Perhaps the power of my bloodline is too unexpected in the first place, and the heavens can't contain me anymore. Su Xiaolan raised her head and murmured in a soft voice as she sensed the despairing lightning. "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you." Enlin grabbed onto Su Xiaolan's delicate hand and consoled her in a gentle voice. Su Xiaolan was surprised. "Why are you holding on to me? You'll be struck by lightning too. Did you know that the energy of tribulation lightning is also conserved? When it passes through your body and transfers its energy to my body, it'll be equivalent to the 2 of us resisting the lightning together. That way, I can help you digest half of the lightning energy," Enlin explained. Su Xiaolan was astonished. "I haven't transcended tribulation lightning much, don't try to fool me." "I'm the renowned Lord of Transcendence, I wouldn't fool you," Enlin said with a serious expression. Su Xiaolan believed Enlin's words and allowed him to hold on to her hand. Right at this moment, the golden void lightning dragon roared before crashing down onto the ground with terrifying might. Enlin pointed a finger at the lightning dragon in the sky with black mist revolving around his body. Lightning manipulation technique. Whoosh! The dazzling golden void lightning dragon suddenly faltered before slowly descending towards Su Xiaolan. Enlin's lightning manipulation technique was effective against the divine lightning of Su Xiaolan's tribulation transcendence. Right at this moment, the lightning dragon had already reached Su Xiaolan before crashing down with a thunderous roar. Chapter 1149. Terrifying divine lightning wreaked havoc on every corner of her body. Su Xiaolan couldn't help but cry out in pain as she tried her best to defend herself against the fearsome lightning. The golden void lightning flowed through Su Xiaolan's body and instantly spread to Enlin's body. This type of golden void lightning was extremely terrifying. It crashed into every corner of his body, threatening to tear his consciousness to shreds. Su Xiaolan's eyes became brighter and brighter, but her body trembled uncontrollably. It was clear that she was still struggling to withstand such terrifying lightning. Lin discovered that there was no movement in the sky above him as he held hands with Su Xiaolan to defend against the tribulation lightning. This proved that this method was feasible. "And Kiran, help me! Draw more energy toward me!" Lin yelled from within his sea of vital energy. The little golden person riding on the little whale's back roared into the sky upon hearing Lin's words. The muscles on its shimmering golden arms suddenly bulged, and lightning burst forth from its body as it pointed both palms toward the sky. Kiran yelled, "Yaya, ayaya!" Lin was astonished by this scene. Was the little golden person going to self-destruct? What a terrifying sight! Boom! Right at this moment, a burst of powerful suction force traveled from within Lin's body to his hand. The lightning wreaking havoc on Su Xiaolan's body was drawn in by this suction force and quickly moved away from where they were holding hands before fusing into Lin's sea of vital energy. Lin's assistance finally allowed Su Xiaolan's body, which was on the brink of collapse, to heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, within Lin's sea of vital energy, Kiran's body became more and more substantial, and his aura also became more powerful. This was the golden void lightning produced by the heavenly Tao, and it was the best nourishment for Lin. The golden void dragon completely descended. It was as if a golden lightning bomb had exploded, annihilating everything within a radius of 10,000 meters. Lin could feel the entire process of Su Xiaolan's grip on his hand changing from normal to forceful, and then loosening. At this moment, Lin was so frightened that his heart trembled. He thought that Su Xiaolan was going to be struck to death. Thankfully, Su Xiaolan was able to withstand the golden void lightning dragon's descent. A small azure dragon with a pair of pure golden eyes suddenly appeared and revolved around Su Xiaolan's body as if it were a guardian deity looking up at the white lightning vermilion bird in the sky. Before Lin and Su Xiaolan could catch their breath, the white lightning vermilion bird in the sky let out a clear cry, as if it was about to pounce down from the sky. Lin's heart leapt into his throat. This was the most crucial moment. They could not afford to be careless. Ha ha ha! Right at this time, a great golden sun tore through the dark clouds, releasing endless light and heat. The world turned into a scorching sea of fire, burning the surrounding space. Roar! Do you really think I'm going to leave just like that? A golden flaming dragon flew toward them from afar with a cruel smile on its face. Lord of Transcendence, Lin, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Do you think I wouldn't notice such a massive expanse of tribulation clouds? I'm just waiting for an opportunity to decide the outcome of this battle. Helping someone transcend their tribulation isn't a good idea to get distracted. Ha ha! The Western Dragon Forest returned to void final stage mighty figure, Sun God Apollo, had made a comeback. In another direction, heaven and earth were covered in frost and ice as frosty winds swept through a radius of over 150 kilometers. Stop wasting time, Apollo. This is the perfect time for us to strike. Frost god Zhuoma also flew toward them from afar before opening its cavernous mouth, upon which terrifying energy began to accumulate. Apollo chortled with glee as 9 massive crimson fireballs materialized beside its body, making the space within a radius of 5 kilometers twist and crack. The two returned to void final stage mighty figures were preparing to strike at the same time. This was the most perilous moment in Lin's life. If he stood on the spot and didn't run, then he would be a live target for the two returned to void final stage mighty figures to blast him to death. Su Xiaolan immediately tore off the heavenly star dark shell and handed it to Lin with an enraged expression. You're their target. Take this defensive tool and get away from me. The heavenly star dark shell could be activated 3 times, and it could defend against attacks from Tao integration stage mighty figures for 10 minutes each time it was activated. This was enough time for him to react to any situation. What are you still standing here for? If you keep standing here, both of us are going to die. Su Xiaolan exclaimed in a panicked voice. Lin gripped tightly onto Su Xiaolan's hand and shook his head. He knew what Su Xiaolan was thinking. If he really did leave this place, he would be able to survive, but Su Xiaolan would definitely die. She was in the middle of her tribulation transcendence, so she couldn't move or use any defensive tools. How was she going to survive the white lightning vermilion bird's tribulation lightning? Su Xiaolan bit down on her parched lips and pleaded with a sobbing voice, "Hurry up and leave. I'm begging you. You have to believe that I can survive the final bolt of tribulation lightning." Lin refused. A smile appeared on his face. "I just feel like you have a higher chance of survival if I'm by your side." If he were to leave Su Xiaolan for the sake of survival, Su Xiaolan would only have a 1 in 100 chance of surviving the lightning tribulation. In that case, it would be better to stay by Su Xiaolan's side and share life and death with her. That way, their chances of survival would be higher than 1 in 100, right? This was a free pass, and he knew what to choose even with his eyes closed. Right at this moment, Apollo's 9 crimson fireballs began to move, crashing down upon Lin like the sun crashing down upon the earth. Zhuo Ma's frosty breath erupted forth, and it was as if a galaxy of frost and frost had descended upon the earth, freezing everything in its wake. 2 Return to Void final stage mighty figures were unleashed at the same time, and even Lin would find it difficult to defend himself, let alone Lin, who had just been ravaged by the golden void lightning and was unable to move freely. However, Lin's expression was filled with unprecedented determination as he activated his power to the maximum in preparation for the oncoming storm. All of a sudden, a white figure appeared in the sky. Extreme Dragon Sword, Heavenly Blade. A sword projection stole the colors of heaven and earth. Everything in the path of the sword light was cut in half, and even space itself was cut in half, forming a clear dislocation. The 9 suns were sliced in half by the monstrous sword projection, and sparks exploded into the sky. The frosty breath was also sliced into 2 energy shockwaves that were on the verge of collapse. Gundam 3 and Yao Ji positioned themselves in front of Lin and the others before unleashing a dual ionic deprivation energy barrier. Finally, they were able to just barely keep the shockwaves from the explosion at bay. The first wave of attacks unleashed by Apollo and Zhuo Ma had been nullified just like that. Lin and Su Xiaolan were both rooted to the spot for a split second at the sight of the man who had intervened. This was because the man who had intervened was none other than the number 1 Flex King of the Dragon Court, Ao Qingyu. Roar. Ao Qingyu, your Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas has a vendetta against Lin, and even now, the 2 of you are merely taking advantage of each other. This is the perfect opportunity to kill him, so why did you intervene to save him? Apollo roared with rage and confusion. I owe him a favor. It's as simple as that. Besides, Ao Qingyu chuckled coldly, why do I need to explain myself to you? Chapter 1150. Lin and Su Xiaolan felt like Ao Qingyu's flexing was so cool for the first time. With the help of a Return to Void final stage mighty figure, their chances of survival were even greater. Roar. What an unreasonable lunatic. You're going to regret your decision today. Golden flames erupted from Apollo's body. We don't have time. Zhuo Ma, you hold off Ao Qingyu while I go take care of Lin. Zhuo Ma shuddered. I won't be able to hold him off in my current state. I'll be killed by him. Apollo. Then I'll hold off Ao Qingyu. Don't disappoint me. It spread open its wings and pounced toward Ao Qingyu as it spoke. Commandment of the Sun. Apollo's wings suddenly extended for several dozen kilometers before enshrouding Ao Qingyu within, and its body and divine Tao transformed into the most indestructible prison. Your sword may be able to slice through everything, but it won't be able to extinguish my Tao of the eternal young God. Just as Apollo was trapping Ao Qingyu, frost god Zhuo Ma charged toward Enlin and Su Xiaolan. In the sky above, the white lightning vermilion bird also chose to charge toward Su Xiaolan at this moment. A dragon and a bird had inexplicably joined forces to attack in a situation like this. Enlin was struck by despair at this moment. If he chose to defend and block the tribulation lightning as well, then the heavens would probably strike him down with 82 bolts of divine lightning. This could be seen from Ladent's death. However, if he chose not to defend, then Enlin would have to face the tribulation lightning and Zhuo Ma's attacks head-on, even with his body of the war god. Furthermore, Xiaolan was right beside him. He was going to die either way, and this was truly a dire situation. Su Xiaolan had clearly realized this as well, and her body trembled as she gripped onto Enlin's hand tightly. Die! Zhuo Ma cackled as it unleashed another terrifying divine Tao breath. Right at this moment, a white streak of light pierced through the sky and dispelled the divine Tao breath. A massive red and white dragon pierced through space before crashing into Zhuo Ma's abdomen. An earth-shattering force swept forth. The shock wave swept through tens of thousands of meters. Zhuo Ma's eyes widened, and its abdomen caved in as it vomited a mouthful of blood. Pwah! The massive frost dragon flew backward like a cannonball. The giant dragon stood proudly before a faint smile appeared on its face. The dragon court can still be saved. At the very least, Ao Qingyu has become more mature than before. Enlin and Su Xiaolan stared at the unfamiliar dragon in bewilderment. Who was this guy? Before they had a chance to organize their thoughts, the white lightning vermilion bird descended from the sky. At this moment, the world was filled with boundless white lightning. The brightness was even more dazzling than the sun, covering everything in the world. Enlin had already unleashed his lightning manipulation technique and was trying his best to slow down the speed of the tribulation lightning. Since they already had a strong external aid to help them, what they needed to do was to go through the tribulation with all their might. The power of the white lightning vermilion bird was different from that of the golden void lightning. It was not imbued with the power to destroy space. Instead, it was imbued with the power to purify everything in this world into nothingness. That's right, this didn't mean that purification was harmless. If the method of purification was to get rid of everything it disliked, then the divine lightning was an extremely terrifying power. Su Xiaolan wailed with anguish again. This time, the power of the vermilion bird within her body circulated on its own to resist and absorb the power of the vermilion bird divine lightning. However, this power was still far too terrifying. The vermilion bird bloodline could absorb the power of divine lightning, but divine lightning was not a stream that could be slowly absorbed. It was a turbulent river, and the vermilion bird bloodline was unable to absorb so much power at once. The excess power wreaked havoc on Su Xiaolan's body, destroying everything in its path. Enlin tried his best to draw the power of lightning from Su Xiaolan's body into Enlin's sea of vital energy, but it was still not fast enough. Enlin's heart was burning with anxiety. Within his sea of vital energy, the proud and silent flaming vermilion bird suddenly looked up into the sky. Yuan, Ing. A crisp sound reverberated within his sea of vital energy. The projection of a white flaming vermilion bird flashed past Enlin's eyes. This was the state he was in when he was possessed by the vermilion bird to help him refine pills. He didn't reject this state. Instead, he completely relinquished control over the process. An extremely powerful suction force erupted from Enlin's hand, sucking away the vermilion bird divine lightning from Su Xiaolan's body like a whale swallowing the ocean. Within his sea of vital energy, the flaming vermilion bird sprouted a pair of white lightning wings. Enlin yelled in protest as lightning crackled around his body, and he felt like he was about to fight. The vermilion bird had taken away all of the power of divine lightning that had entered his sea of vital energy. The vermilion bird divine lightning disappeared. There was a man standing on the ground. His hand was still tightly holding onto a woman in a jade dress who was sitting on the ground. Su Xiaolan sat with her legs crossed on the ground with her eyes tightly closed, as if she had entered some kind of meditative state. An enraged roar erupted from the sky in the distance. "Who are you? Why are you trying to stop me?" Zhuoma was enraged, and it roared at the eastern dragon in front of it. The powerful red and white dragon over 10,000 feet in length smiled lightly. "Zhuoma, you sure are forgetful. I even fought you during the 100-Dragon War in the ancient Tai Chu realm." Zhuoma faltered slightly upon hearing this before an ancient memory surfaced in its mind. Her pupils contracted, and she exclaimed in shock, "So it's you, the former commander of the Divine Guardian Squad who followed Heavenly Dragon Maiden Shun Yin into battle, Long Ao. Heh, looks like you don't have dementia." The red and white dragon chuckled. "However, my name is no longer Long Ao. My name is—" The red and white dragon looked up into the sky with a haughty expression. "Long Aotian." Zhuoma's mouth gaped open. And Lin's mouth also gaped open. He finally understood why this dragon had saved him and Su Xiaolan. So this dragon was Long Ao from the Winter Dragon Tomb. At the time, Lin had even named him Long Aotian. He was the proud and unfettered Long Aotian. "I was just going to observe from afar and see how this junior, who has received Xin Yin's true inheritance, is progressing to the return to void stage. Who would have thought that you would come and cause trouble?" Golden light suddenly revolved around Long Aotian's claws as he spoke, and a bloodthirsty and brutal battle intent appeared in his eyes. "Since you're here, then don't ever go back. F***ck. This B***tch really is unreliable." Apollo, who had unleashed the sun cage with his body and divine Tao, couldn't bear to watch this any longer. He reverted back to his original form and fled into the distance without another word. Long Aotian's arrival meant that there was no way they could gain the upper hand in this battle. Ao Qingyu's white robe fluttered as he flew through the air. He hadn't even unleashed his sword intent, but the space around him had already been sliced open. He shot a glance at Long Aotian. "You're here." "That's right, I'm here." Long Aotian nodded. "You didn't have to come. I can handle this myself." Ao Qingyu's expression was cold. I've been quite fond of fighting recently, so I wanted to spar with a return to void final stage dragon," Long Aotian replied with a nonchalant expression. And Lin couldn't help but say, "If we keep talking, those two dragons are really going to get away." "Don't worry, they won't be able to get away." Ao Qingyu's sword light glowed brightly. "Everything is under control." Long Aotian's eyes were bloodshot. And Lin. He felt like listening to them was so tiring. Everything they said sounded very bad *SS, but don't just boast without doing anything. How did the two of them end up like this? Long Aotian and Ao Qingyu began to unleash their respective techniques as they pursued the lizard dragons up ahead. It was also at this moment that the lightning clouds in the sky dissipated. The meditating woman in a jade dress suddenly opened her golden eyes, and it was as if the light of dawn had broken through heaven and earth. Chapter 1151. In that instant, Lin felt like he had seen a true dragon raise its head and a vermilion bird soar into the heavens. In the distance, Zhuoma and Apollo were fleeing for their lives. They thought back to the times when they had been chased by Lin and Ao Qingyu. Even now, they were still being chased. However, the mighty figures chasing them were now Ao Qingyu and Long Aotian. A return to void final stage dragon tribe mighty figure is running away like a stray dog. What a disgrace to the western dragon forest. Long Aotian mocked as he chased after them. Frost god Zhuoma didn't want to say anything, and it unleashed a few frosty farts at the two mighty figures behind it. Long Aotian's brows furrowed, and he opened his mouth to blast through Zhuoma's frosty energy before hurtling toward the frost dragon's tail. Zhuoma flapped its wings, and it evaded Long Aotian's attack with agility. Not taking into account other things, just its ability to escape was a lot better than before. After all, practice makes perfect. However, things were a little different this time as the two returned to void final stage. Mighty figures chasing after it were both very arrogant and violent people. Ao Qingyu expanded his divine Dao sword intent domain again, extending it for over 50 kilometers before stabbing it toward Zhuo Ma's back. The sword light pierced through the void like a streak of cold light, breaking through Zhuo Ma's divine Dao barrier and exploding on its bottom. Howl! Zhuo Ma howled in pain as its massive body swayed unsteadily. Save me, Apollo! Zhuo Ma yelled for help again. Apollo had no choice but to turn around and try to save it. It couldn't just stand by and watch Zhuo Ma's plight. Myriad sun star flame. Apollo turned around and spread open its massive wings of flames, making it look like a primordial beast as it flapped its wings toward Ao Qingyu and Long Outyin. Over 10,000 fireballs imbued with the power of the divine Dao hurtled toward them like meteorites. Ao Qingyu drew his sword and slashed through the fireballs one after another. Long Outyin's body flashed through the air at an extremely fast speed, transforming into a streak of white light that appeared behind Zhuo Ma just as it was about to lose its balance. Get down! A white, flat, circular halo spread out from Long Outyin's claws and covered the sky above Zhuo Ma. Suddenly it started vibrating. The terrifying shockwaves caused Zhuo Ma to shriek as it plummeted toward the ground again. Long Outyin smiled faintly. He was about to chase after Zhuo Ma when Apollo's flaming sun attack came again, hindering his advance. Run! I can't delay those two dragons for long. Apollo let out an angry roar. He clasped his claws together and crossed his sturdy legs in midair. Ao Qingyu and Long Outyin were just perplexed by this strange posture when a massive sun rose up behind Apollo. It was as if the sun had risen from the east, and its light illuminated the entire heaven and earth. Great God Flame, 10,000 rays of light. The sun behind Apollo suddenly burst out with beams of light that pierced through the void. It was as if 1,000 rays of light had illuminated the world. There was nowhere to hide. A beam of light shone on the ground, instantly burning a huge hole in the ground. The soil and rocks melted away without a trace. Ao Qingyu and Long Outyin's expressions shifted upon seeing this, and they had no choice but to stop in their tracks as they unleashed powerful spell techniques to defend themselves against the terrifying flames of the sun. Zhuo Ma took this opportunity to stabilize its body before fleeing into the distance again. Ao Qingyu, Long Outyin, and Lin. Remember this. I'm going to make you pay for this one day. Zhuo Ma gritted its teeth as it abruptly raised its head to discover a woman in a jade dress standing in midair with a sword in her hand, as if she was waiting for it. It's you. Zhuo Ma's expression darkened as it recalled the woman who was transcending her tribulation, and it let loose an enraged roar. A mere rookie returned to void stage mighty figure dares to stand in my way? You have a death wish. That's right, the woman in the jade dress was none other than Su Xiaolan, who had only just progressed to the return to void stage. The ice and frost dragon's momentum did not falter in the slightest, and its claws tore through the air before crashing down upon the woman in the jade dress with unstoppable force. A rookie return to void stage mighty figure was like an ant to her, and she could crush it with a flick of her wrist. She was now unleashing her full power, and this was a display of her full power. In the face of the massive claws that were capable of shattering space with a single swipe, Su Xiaolan merely raised her sword in front of her. Bam! Sparks flew as energy surged for several kilometers. A mountain-toppling power swept forth, pushing Su Xiaolan back for over a kilometer, but the speed at which she was being pushed back was becoming slower and slower. Zhuo Ma's expression shifted drastically at this moment. It could sense an extremely terrifying power emanating from the blade of the dragon's claws. The dragon's pupils contracted. How could this be? Su Xiaolan raised her head, and the golden light in her eyes was so pure that even Zhuo Ma's heart jolted with fear. Zhuo Ma, are you prepared to face the consequences of what you did to me, An and Lin? A pair of pristine white holy flame wings appeared on the woman's back, and she stepped forward before disappearing on the spot. Even though Zhuoma was very severely injured, its senses were still extremely sharp, and it immediately turned around before swiping its claws toward a certain direction. Sure enough, in the next instant, Su Xiaolan's figure appeared in that direction. However, before its claws could strike her, she transformed into a dazzling bolt of lightning and disappeared into thin air. 4 Holy Spirits, materialize my blade of blood, prairie fire sword intent, slay the gods and destroy the Tao. Su Xiaolan appeared behind Zhuoma as she chanted. Frosty winds swept through the air, and the jade barley ink garment blossomed like a green lotus. Her slender, pristine little legs beneath her dress bent, and she abruptly stepped into the air as she hurtled toward the frost and frost dragon at an extremely terrifying speed. The dragon sparrow soared into the heavens in that instant, and the holy beast's soul imbued the blade of the sword transformed into a prairie fire holy flame that slashed down upon the frost and frost dragon's back. A white sword projection lit up the night sky. This sword strike was imbued with the purest power of the true dragon and the power of the vermilion bird at the same time, and it was imbued with the lightning power of the dragon tribe, as well as the proud and transcendent bloodline of the vermilion bird. This was a sword strike unleashed by Su Xiaolan with all of her power after progressing to the return to void stage. A sword strike that stole the colors of heaven and earth. In the sky above, frost god Zhuoma's anguished wails erupted into the heavens. A gargantuan gash appeared on the dragon's back from which blood gushed forth. The dragon that was close to 5 kilometers in length plummeted from the sky, sending shock waves sweeping through the air before crashing into the ground below, causing the entire earth to tremor violently. Ao Qingyu, Long Aotian, and Apollo all turned toward Su Xiaolan. They looked at the massive ice and frost dragon that had fallen to the ground, as well as the beautiful woman in a jade dress who stood proudly in the sky, and all of them felt like this was absurd and unbelievable. One was a new return to void stage mighty figure, while the other was a mighty figure who had attained the power of the divine Tao. Even if Zhuoma was severely wounded, it shouldn't be bullied by a woman who had just transcended her tribulation. A thought suddenly welled up in the hearts of all the dragon tribe mighty figures. To think that Su Xiaolan, who had just transcended her tribulation, was this terrifying. Chapter 1152. The frost dragon lay on the ground, panting heavily as it struggled to get up from the ground. She didn't think that she would be slain by a woman who had just transcended her tribulation to the return to void stage. Su Xiaolan didn't give Zhuoma a chance to breathe. She swung her sword again. Wind and snow. Zhuoma spread its wings, and its entire body began to transform into a snowy white body. Rumble! Su Xiaolan's sword pounced like a vermilion bird, crushing Zhuoma's snow-white body into pieces. However, in the next moment, Zhuoma's figure appeared 20 kilometers away, and it quickly fled into the distance. Damn it! What a humiliating day! Not only was I bullied by Ao Qingyu, but I was also bullied by a junior. Zhuoma turned around with shock and horror. Fortunately, she had a special escape technique, so she had the opportunity to escape from the clutches of Su Xiaolan. Why are you running? Get lost! An angry shout suddenly came from the front. Zhuoma looked forward, only to see a reddish-gold man throwing a punch at it. Extremely fast speed, extremely terrifying strength. Zhuoma had no time to dodge and was struck by the explosive force, screaming as it was sent flying. Go back and practice for my Xiaolan. The golden-red man's aura was terrifying, and his battle intent surged as he spoke. Enlin had been lurking for so long just to cut off Zhuoma's escape route. Zhuoma was in despair. It was severely wounded, and there were Enlin in front of it and Su Xiaolan behind it. Apollo was also being held back by Ao Qingyu and Long Aotian. What could it do? Roar! A distant and ethereal dragon roar rang out. She chose to shout for help again. However, at this moment, Su Xiaolan had already spread open her vermilion bird flame wings and rushed toward her at an extremely fast speed, slashing out a series of sword projections that made her heart palpitate. The hard frost dragon scales were cut open by the sharp sword edge, and dozens of ghastly wounds instantly appeared. The destructive power contained in the sword chi wreaked havoc in his body. "Hold on! Zhuama, don't die!" An anxious shout came from afar. "Is Apollo coming to save me?" In its despair, Zhuama raised its head, only to discover that Ao Qingyu was flying toward it with crimson eyes. Ao Qingyu was gripping his long sword tightly in fear that it would be too slow. Tears immediately streamed down Zhuama's face. These were no reinforcements, they were the Grim Reaper who was rushing over to steal its dragon head. "It's over, Zhuama." A melodious voice that sounded like the 9 heavens rang in his ears. The dragon sparrow sword let loose a shrill cry as it sliced through Zhuama's neck. Its head was separated from its body just like that. Everything happened so suddenly, but it was also predictable. Zhuama's eyes widened. Never would it have thought that it would die at the hands of a human woman who had only just progressed to the return to void stage. Rumble! The huge body smashed into the ground, causing the ground to cave in. Thus, the ruler of the Western Dragon Forest, the Frost God, returned to void final stage mighty figure Zhuama, perished. She tragically became Su Xiaolan's first return to void stage cultivator. "You forced Enlin and I into dire straits. Do you know your wrongs now?" Su Xiaolan spoke in a cold voice as she looked at the decapitated Frost God. Zhuama was no longer able to reply to her, but its carcass was telling the story of what had happened to it. A vast and powerful burst of dragon power rose up from Zhuama's body before quickly flowing into Su Xiaolan's body. "No!" Not far away, Ao Qingyu wept with despair on his face. "How could this be? I was the one who came first. I've pursued her 3 times already. Why did she give it to you?" Ao Qingyu was on the verge of a mental breakdown. He was unable to accept this reality. What the hell? Was this a scene for nothing? Enlin couldn't help but grumble upon seeing this. He thought about it for a moment before taking Zhuama's storage ring and flying toward Ao Qingyu. "Mr. Ao Qingyu, thank you for standing up for me. Take this storage ring as a token of my appreciation." He knew that if it weren't for Ao Qingyu, it would have been very difficult for him and Su Xiaolan to be rescued from the 2 return to void stage dragon tribe mighty figures. Enlin had always been a very clear-minded person when it came to matters like this. Of course, part of the reason why they were rescued was also thanks to Long Outyin. Ao Qingyu quickly repressed his grief and shook his head with a cold expression. "There's no need for that. I only saved you to repay you for fighting Zeus for me." Enlin was a little surprised. He didn't think that Ao Qingyu would be willing to give up the storage ring of a dragon tribe mighty figure. Su Xiaolan was able to slay Zhuama, so this storage ring is her fortune. "You and I are even now, and you will still be an enemy of the Dragon Court the next time we meet." Before Enlin had a chance to say anything, Ao Qingyu had already flown into the distance with a nonchalant expression. He came and went like the wind, completely indifferent to fame and fortune. A hint of admiration welled up in Enlin's heart. To be able to flex to this extent was actually quite an ability. At the very least, he wouldn't be willing to give up the storage ring of a return to void final stage mighty figure just for the sake of flexing. Not long after that, a huge red and white dragon flew over before transforming into a half-naked man in the blink of an eye. Enlin was quite familiar with this appearance. Aside from the fact that he liked to expose himself, this middle-aged man was indeed Long Outyin, whom he had encountered in the Winter Dragon tomb. Sigh. Apollo got away in the end. Long Outyin shook his head with a forlorn expression. An uninjured return to void final stage mighty figure is indeed quite difficult to stop if he insists on escaping. "If you need the power of dragons, Su Xiaolan and I will do our best to help you, Senior," Enlin said. "Haha, that's not a big deal." Long Outyin waved a hand in refusal before continuing. "To be honest, the 2 of you are the ones who astonished me the most during this trip. It's only been a few years, but the two of you have grown so quickly that I don't even know what to say." He looked at Enlin and the meditating Su Xiaolan with a hint of shock and admiration on his face. "It's only been a few years, but you two have grown so quickly that I don't even know what to say." "Hee, it's all just luck," Enlin replied modestly. "There is no such thing as luck on the path of Tao." Long Outyen looked at Enlin with an earnest expression and said, "You two are supremely talented prodigies who are able to progress on the path of Tao. That's how bad *SS you are." To suddenly be praised by Long Outyen in such a serious manner, Enlin was ecstatic to hear this. Su Xiaolan opened her eyes again. Her pure golden dragon eyes had disappeared, and they had reverted back to their original human form. She made her way over to Long Outyen and bowed in gratitude. "Thank you for saving me, senior." "Haha. You're a true disciple of Shen, so I saved you along the way. There's no need to thank me." Long Outyen wore a wide smile on his face, clearly extremely pleased with this disciple of his. "You've only just broken through to the Return to Void stage, and you used Zhuoma's power of dragons to stabilize your cultivation base and progress to the Return to Void initial stage. You're so awesome. I can't help but admire you." Su Xiaolan turned to Enlin with a dainty smile. "It's all thanks to Enlin's support. Without him, I would still be a mere soul formation stage cultivator." There was nothing wrong with this statement. Enlin's 2 invincible healings had been extremely crucial. "How do you plan on thanking me?" Enlin asked with a smile. A blush appeared on Su Xiaolan's face under Enlin's scorching gaze. How do you think I should thank you? Give me a kiss." "No, 2 kisses. I killed 2 dragons for you," Enlin replied. "You're so annoying." Su Xiaolan was a little embarrassed. "There are outsiders here. Long Outyen is a dragon, not a human. Let's just treat him as a backdrop," Enlin insisted. Long Outyen. Not only were their cultivation bases progressing at an astonishing rate, but they were also progressing at an astonishing rate. Even the progress of their relationship was so fast that it shocked him. Chapter 1153. Enlin and Su Xiaolan continued on their journey after that. Long Outyen made some small talk with the two of them before asking them about the current situation of the Dragon Court. As the former leader of the Dragon Court's Divine Guardian Squad, he was quite curious about these things, but he had no intention of returning to the Dragon Court. Shen Yin's departure meant that he was completely free, and he didn't want to return to the Dragon Court. "Senior Long Outyen, you can choose to join the 4-9 Immortal Sect," Enlin offered. "I don't like to be controlled by others. Itinerant cultivators have more freedom and can fight without any restrictions." Long Outyen didn't have any positive feelings toward sections. Su Xiaolan replied, "But the 4-9 Immortal Sect is different. Even sect leader Enlin doesn't have any restrictions on you. He's just a nominal member of the sect. If there's a problem, we can fight together. If there's nothing, you can do whatever you want. It's very free. There are no specific missions or responsibilities." Long Outyen was a little surprised. Enlin patted his chest with a smile. "Of course. If you want to do it, then do it. If you don't want to do it, then you can do whatever you want. You'll be an elder if you join the sect. You'll be given a house and an annual salary. As long as you don't do anything bad to the sect, if anyone tries to attack you, the entire sect will attack them for you." Long Outyen fell into deep thought upon hearing this. Enlin's conditions were very tempting. He didn't want to join a sect as he felt like the rules and regulations of a sect were too complicated and annoying. However, the 4-9 Immortal Sect that Enlin was talking about seemed to have a lot of freedom. Furthermore, he was very optimistic about this sect. It could be said that it had limitless potential. Enlin and Su Xiaolan also had some ties with him, so he could do whatever he wanted. Sometimes, joining a sect was also a huge opportunity. Long Outyen was well aware of this. "How about this? I'll give you an answer after we leave the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. Long Outian pondered for a moment before replying. Enlin and Su Xiaolan were ecstatic to hear this. This meant that there was a very good chance that Long Outian would join the sect. He had recruited another Return to Void final stage mighty figure into his sect. How wonderful! Not everyone could join the 4-9 Immortal sect, but Long Outian was a member of Shenine, and he had saved Enlin and Su Xiaolan, so it was clear that he wasn't a bad person. Hence, recruiting Long Outian was extremely beneficial to the 4-9 Immortal sect. After chatting for a while, Long Outian decided to bid farewell to the two of them. He preferred to hunt and fight alone, so he chose to be a lone ranger. Enlin did not ask them to stay, and just like that, the 3-man team became a 2-man team. Xiaolan, it's time for us to find Xiaozi. Even though he's extremely tough, he'll still be in great danger if he encounters a Return to Void final stage mighty figure. Enlin analyzed their current target. Su Xiaolan nodded and said, "No problem, I can finally help now." Enlin patted Su Xiaolan's head with a smile. "That's right. You're invincible below the Return to Void final stage now." Su Xiaolan pouted with indignation. "I'm not even afraid of Return to Void final stage cultivators, so why do you have to add below? During Zhuoma's battle, you only used a sliver of blood to land a killing blow, so that's not your true power. I'll be honest with you, you still have a lot of room for improvement. In your current state, you probably can't even defeat your grandpa." Enlin felt like Su Xiaolan was getting a little too full of herself, and he didn't hold back in his criticism. Su Xiaolan was unconvinced. "When I fought Zhuoma, I was only a rookie Return to Void stage mighty figure. Now that I've absorbed Zhuoma's power of dragons, I'm already at the Return to Void initial stage, so I've become a lot more powerful." Enlin's mouth gaped open, but he was at a loss for words. Su Xiaolan patted her chest with a smug smile. "Hence, please call me Su Invincible below the Dao integration stage Su Xiaolan." Enlin, it was over. It looked like Su Xiaolan really had surpassed him. What was the meaning of this? Enlin fell into deep thought. Su Xiaolan was finally able to flex in front of Enlin, and she felt very good. She felt like she was falling in love with this feeling. The two of them sat on a brick and wandered around the boundless ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. Su Xiaolan would unleash her exquisite fire lightning sword from time to slay some mutant beasts with dragon tribe bloodlines. These mutant beasts could also provide her with the power of dragons, but it was a lot less than the power of dragons provided by the 3 dragon tribes. Killing 10 Soul Formation stage dragon tribe bloodline mutant beasts wouldn't even provide her with the power of dragons as much as killing 1 Soul Formation stage evil dragon. If it were a Soul Formation stage dragon tribe powerful being, they would probably weigh the pros and cons before attacking. However, Su Xiaolan was different. To her, these mutant beasts would be a waste if she didn't want them. She had reached the Return to Void stage in the Spirit Refinement stage, and her divine sense could easily encompass a radius of over 50 kilometers. Along the way, she demonstrated to Enlin how she could slay an enemy general from over 50 kilometers away, and Enlin was absolutely envious of her. "I really want to return to the Void stage." Enlin sighed with emotion as he silently pulled out his evil-slaying sword. He couldn't help but resent the fact that swords couldn't nurture spirits again. It was his duty to urge the evil-slaying sword to nurture a spirit. Regardless of whether it worked or not, he had to do it. This was like a family member urging for marriage. Whether it worked or not, his attitude was another matter. Enlin was using his attitude to tell the evil-slaying sword that it was time to nurture a spirit. Evil-slaying sword. F***ck off. Xiaolan, how does it feel to reach the Return to Void stage? Return to Void stage? It feels great. How great is it? My divine energy is full, my sea of vital energy is boundless, my senses have become more powerful, and my sense of space is extremely powerful. I'm looking at this world from a different perspective, and my perception of Tao intent has become more acute. Su Xiaolan rattled off a bunch of great things about reaching the return to void stage, and Enlin was filled with anticipation before becoming a little disconsolate. Why was it so easy for Su Xiaolan to break through to the return to void stage? However, he needed a cultivation method, a divine pill, and a divine tool to break through to the return to void stage. This was so unfair. By the way, how about we try spatial travel? Su Xiaolan suddenly suggested. You want to try it now? There's no map of the ancient Tai Chu realm, and we don't even know the coordinate. There's no need to use spatial travel, right? Enlin was a little confused. Because it's my first time. A light blush appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. I'm a little scared, so I want to learn it while you're by my side. So you're dragging me through spatial travel with you? Enlin was a little amused. At the same time, there was an indescribable sense of sweetness in his heart. Su Xiaolan glared at Enlin. How dare you say things like that? I just feel more secure with you by my side. This was the first time a return to void stage mighty figure had tried to teleport, so it was quite dangerous. There had been unlucky cultivators who had been killed by chaotic turbulence during spatial travel because they didn't know how to do it. It was like learning how to drive. All return to void stage mighty figures knew how to drive, but there was no guarantee that a newbie could crash and type GG. She had to become an experienced driver as soon as possible. Normal spatial travel was divided into two types: random travel and fixed travel. Random travel involved tearing open a spatial rift and walking around in chaos. Then, one would pop out of the rift, and the cultivator wouldn't even know what kind of place they would end up in. The other type was fixed travel, which required one to know the detailed coordinates of the two spaces in advance. Su Xiaolan was going to try fixed travel now. Let's teleport to that mountain. Enlin pointed at a flaming mountain over 50 kilometers away. All right. Su Xiaolan nodded. She took a deep breath and sensed the ripples and fluctuations in space before abruptly plunging her hands into the ground. Hiss. Chapter 1154. The spatial passageway was torn open by Su Xiaolan with a single hand. Within the spatial passageway was a chaotic and disorderly space. She had already accurately sensed the coordinates of the flaming mountain 50 kilometers away, so it shouldn't be an issue for her to pass through the chaos and arrive at that place. Su Xiaolan extended a slender hand and held onto Enlin's hand tightly in order to bolster her courage. This was the first time that Enlin had seen Su Xiaolan act so cowardly, and he was quite intrigued. Just as Su Xiaolan was extremely nervous and carefully stepped into the spatial passageway, Enlin suddenly roared like a groundhog. "Ow!" Su Xiaolan was indeed given a fright, and she screamed as she tossed Enlin into the spatial passageway. Enlin was almost engulfed by the boundless chaotic turbulence. As it turned out, it was very easy to get yourself killed if you didn't care about the situation. Enlin accompanied Su Xiaolan as they traversed through the chaos and evaded the latent dangers within. In the end, they tore open a spatial passageway and successfully arrived in the air above the flaming mountain. Phew! My first experience of traversing through space is not bad. Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief as a smile blossomed on her face. Enlin, who had his face scratched by the chaotic turbulence, smiled apologetically and didn't dare to say anything. But it seems like it took more time than flying on our own. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed. After all, it takes time to tear open a spatial passageway. It's unnecessary to use spatial travel for a short distance of 500 kilometers. Enlin found an opportunity to comment. Su Xiaolan nodded in agreement. She abruptly turned toward the flaming mountain and waved a hand through the air. Blue lightning pierced through the mountain, and an anguished wail rang out. "Humph! You want to ambush me with that level of stealth?" Su Xiaolan's brows perked up slightly as she spoke in a domineering voice. A wisp of the power of dragons pierced through space and merged into her body. Who would have thought that it would be an evil dragon from the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm? However, it probably didn't want to sneak up on us. I used my divine sense to sense that after it saw us, it seemed to be more timid than a turtle. Unlin felt that it was an unlucky fellow. Su Xiaolan shook her head. It's trying to ambush us. The real enemy is somewhere we can't see. She raised her head and looked at the vast starry sky. Someone is watching us from above. Unlin drew a sharp intake of breath. Xiaolan, are you already this badass? I didn't feel anything. The return to void stage mighty figure Su Xiaolan was even more powerful than Unlin had imagined. This is the resonance between heaven and earth that I've developed after progressing to the return to void stage. This type of resonance is very mysterious. Some people feel it very strongly, while others don't feel it at all. Su Xiaolan wasn't too sure herself. At the same time, at a lake 5,000 miles away from the blazing mountain, a man with dragon horns and bat wings suddenly opened his crimson eyes. He spoke in a cold voice. One of our secret guards has been killed. His two lackeys' expressions shifted drastically. Who dares to challenge Master Dark Knight Trident's dignity? He's seeking death. We have to go and execute him right away. Dark Knight Trident shook his head. Don't worry. He was able to discover the secret guard I placed on the blazing mountain, so he's definitely quite powerful. He's most likely a big fish. His two lackeys immediately became excited. Could it be a return to void stage mighty figure? We have to slowly savor the big fish that has been delivered to us. A confident smile appeared on Dark Knight Trident's face. His reconnaissance satellite could cover an area with a radius of 4,000 kilometers, and he would be able to detect any powerful living beings or battles that took place within that area. This kind of cultivation technology was extremely useful in the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. He had already slain 10 soul formation stage powerful beings, so he was feeling extremely confident. The only unfortunate thing was that he hadn't killed a return to void stage powerful being yet. Now, a big prey had finally appeared. It would be beneficial for him to kill as many enemies as he could before carrying out his plan. Let's set off right now. I'm going to capture that big fish myself. Dark Knight Trident stood up as his aura soared, and his battle intent surged. Master Dark Knight Trident is the best! His two lackeys yelled frantically. On the blazing mountain. The two of them stood on the summit of the mountain, and all of the crimson flames and scorching heat waves were kept at bay by an invisible barrier. None of the flames were able to get within 100 feet of them. Su Xiaolan turned to Enlin. What do we do? If they're able to detect our location through a method that even we don't know about, then they're definitely not to be underestimated. Shouldn't we capture such a big fish first? Enlin chuckled. Su Xiaolan was still a little concerned. But, no buts. Enlin held on to Su Xiaolan's soft, fair hand. Wife, your body is quite feeble. I'll capture a few more dragons for you to nourish your body. Su Xiaolan, that's true. I'm Su Invincible below Dao integration stage, Su Xiaolan. What am I worrying about? Su Xiaolan murmured to herself. Enlin. It felt like they were hurting each other. Enlin knew that Su Xiaolan was implicating him in this as well. This was a rare opportunity for her to ride on Enlin's coattails, so she naturally wasn't going to let it go. Thus, the two of them waited on the summit of the mountain. They knew that their enemies would definitely come after them if they discovered their presence. Most mighty figures that came after them didn't have much of a clue. Even if they had a few return to void final stage mighty figures with them, they would be able to escape in time, so there was nothing to worry about. Not long after that, a resounding boom suddenly erupted in the starry sky. Boom! Heaven and earth seemed to have tremored violently. An extremely terrifying power seemed to be about to pierce through some kind of barrier and descend upon this world. Enlin and Su Xiaolan's expressions shifted drastically at the same time. In that instant, they sensed a certain power that made their hearts palpitate with fear. No way, Xiaolan, the people were waiting for our coming? Anlin pointed up into the starry sky. Up there! Gulp. Su Xiaolan swallowed with a hint of fear in her voice. I don't know. I only know that there are eyes in the starry sky that have discovered us. The two of them looked at each other to see the fear and struggle in each other's eyes. They wanted to wait for a rabbit to come to them, but what if it was a lion that came to them instead of a rabbit? Theoretically speaking, there was no one in the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm that could pose a threat to them. However, this was a world that couldn't be summed up with just one sentence. Any bizarre thing could happen. Even as the two of them were feeling fearful and hesitant, a burst of raucous laughter erupted in the distance. Ha 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 ha! You've killed my secret guards, but you're not running away? Are you trying to kill me as well? Reckless fools! You're going to pay a painful price for your ignorance and arrogance. A man with crimson-eyed dragon horns and bat wings flew toward them. There was also a group of dragon tribe powerful beings behind him, all of whom were roaring in a frenzy. Anlin let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing the familiar face at the forefront. It's you! Dark Knight Trident let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing Anlin. You're... Sorry, I've mistaken you for someone else. Farewell. Dark Knight Trident yelled before turning and fleeing. Chapter 1155. Anlin couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing this. You got the wrong person, but I didn't get the wrong person. Your name is Dark Knight Trident. He gave chase as he spoke, and he released Gundam 3 and Yao Ji as well. Dark Knight Trident didn't dare to say anything and only focused on fleeing. Su Xiaolan flew alongside Anlin atop her sword. Do you know him? Anlin nodded with a smile. I do. I punched him and accidentally sent him running. Who would have thought that he would come looking for me again? I don't want to miss out on him again. Su Xiaolan chuckled lightly. All right, I'll go capture him for you. His opponent was a return to Void Intermediate Stage Evil Dragon, and he was extremely adept at running away. However, Su Xiaolan was invincible below the Dao Integration Stage. Chasing down a return to Void Intermediate Stage Evil Dragon would be a piece of cake for her. A dazzling blue bolt of lightning instantly flashed through the night sky. She overtook Anlin before flying toward Dark Knight Trident. She had a mystic technique that allowed her to transform her body into lightning, thereby allowing her to fly at a speed comparable to a mighty figure at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage for a short period of time. Quick, you guys go and stop her. Dark Knight Trident knew that there was a time limit to Su Xiaolan's mystic technique, and he immediately yelled at his loyal subordinates to hold her off. A dozen or so powerful dragon tribe cultivators unleashed their dragon roars toward Su Xiaolan. A series of powerful dragon breaths unfurled in the night sky like colorful satin. However, all of this was pulverized by the terrifying blue bolt of lightning. Immediately afterward, the bolt of lightning flashed past the dozen or so dragon tribe cultivators. They didn't even have a chance to react before their massive bodies were charred black, clearly having been stripped of their lives. Quick, you guys go stop her as well. Dark Knight Trident yelled to his two subordinates. Tears streamed down the two subordinates' faces. Your Majesty, are you going to give up on us as well? If you don't go, all three of us will die. Don't forget our mission. Dark Knight Trident spoke with a grief-stricken expression. When the two attendants heard this, their eyes lit up and they decisively turned around. Xian Immortal True Dragon Portrait. The two dragons joined hands to form a seal, and an extremely huge circular barrier with dragon patterns appeared in the void, releasing extremely powerful fluctuations. Boom! The blue lightning rushed all the way, hitting the dragon pattern formation barrier, causing a violent sound, like a huge bell being struck. The barrier cracked like a turtle shell, but the power of the blue lightning gradually dissipated, and Su Xiaolan's figure began to appear. Obviously, she had been forced to reveal her true body. At the same time, Dark Knight Trident raised his hands to the sky. Reconnaissance satellite, please grant me power. 3 stars in the river of stars flashed slightly, and the powerful power of the stars suddenly attached itself to Dark Knight Trident's body, drastically increasing his speed. The stars buffed him. Ha ha! You want to catch up to my king? Dream on! The 2 attendants laughed heartily as if they had accomplished something extremely glorious. Su Xiaolan heaved a forlorn sigh as she slashed her dragon sparrow sword through the air, instantly slicing the 2 exhausted dragon tribe attendants in half. And Lin caught up to Su Xiaolan. You're not going to chase him anymore? I can't. My acceleration mystic technique has been disrupted, and Dark Knight Trident has suddenly gained the ability to accelerate again. I can't catch him. Su Xiaolan spoke with a disappointed expression. Su Xiaolan was invincible below the Dao integration stage, but she had let a return to void intermediate stage evil dragon get away. This made her feel a sense of defeat. And Lin was also quite impressed by Dark Knight Trident. Not taking into account anything else, his escape techniques were definitely top-notch. Beside a certain lake over 1,000 kilometers away from Enlin and Su Xiaolan, Dark Knight Trident's features were deathly pale, and he panted heavily as he lay on a pile of rubble. Phew, phew, phew. That was close. I really saw a ghost. I almost died in that person's hands twice. Am I really that unlucky? Thank God I have a bunch of loyal subordinates and the help of the immortal tool, the Star Dragon Eye. Otherwise, I really would have become a martyr. Dark Knight Trident pulled out a purple gem and hesitated momentarily before injecting his power into it. Hey, Ancient Dragon Empress, it's me, Dark Knight Trident. After losing sight of Dark Knight Trident, Enlin and Su Xiaolan picked a random direction to continue their journey of finding their disciple. This was a very vast continent with many strange species with dragon tribe bloodlines. The 3 dragon tribes didn't encounter many of them, but they did encounter quite a few interesting mutant beasts. For example, the earth-eating beasts they encountered on the tall mountains. These were mutant beasts with 4 short legs and a body that resembled a whale. They ate the soil on the mountain with relish, and from time to time, they would spit out a mouthful of soil to their companions beside them, playing and playing. These were perhaps the poorest dragon tribe mutant beasts that Enlin had ever seen. Su Xiaolan was very sympathetic toward them and decided not to absorb their power of dragons in order to spare their lives. Life was already so difficult, so why couldn't she just leave them a way out? Enlin, look over there. Su Xiaolan pointed to a mountain with a smile. What does that mountain look like? It looks like a super-massive turtle. Enlin wore a peculiar expression upon seeing this. Haha, that's right, it's a huge turtle. Su Xiaolan latched onto Enlin's hand with an elated smile. This place seems to be destined for you. Let's go and see if there's anything good there. Enlin was speechless. What the F***ck are you talking about? Don't tie me to a turtle. Even though he said that, he still began to search the mountain with Su Xiaolan. He wouldn't be able to wash away the stain on his green turtle shell, so he just accepted it. As long as no one called him a turtle cultivator, everything was fine. Not long after, they stopped in front of a strange cave in the mountain stream. This is a very high-level illusionary formation. The person who set up this formation is extremely powerful. I can't break it, Su Xiaolan said with a grave expression. Let me do it. A white light flashed across Enlin's eyes as he stood in front of the cave. He activated his divine inspection technique. A series of veined patterns began to appear. Initially, they covered a radius of over 1,000 feet. Then, a second layer of veined patterns appeared, enshrouding the entire mountain range. Such a powerful formation, there must be something good in there. Enlin was also very excited. He flicked a finger toward the flaw in the spell formation, upon which a burst of energy struck a certain spot in the air, upon which an opening began to appear in the spell formation. The 2 of them sneakily followed the gap and entered the cave. There was a narrow path within the cave, and it was quiet and dark. They walked along the pitch-black path, and suddenly, the space around them changed drastically. A white light appeared at the end of the path. And Lin passed through the path and another exit, and a whole new world appeared before their eyes. There was a clear blue sky and fluttering white clouds. There was also the sound of waves crashing against the shore. And Lin and Su Xiaolan were both dumbstruck. A boundless ocean had appeared in front of them. A woman in a red dress was lying on the beach, bathing in the sun and sleeping soundly. She slowly opened her bleary eyes. Chapter 1156. Who is it that dares to barge into my secret vacation spot? The woman in red slowly sat up before turning toward the two uninvited guests. On her pretty face, the angry expression gradually turned into astonishment, and she looked completely dumbfounded. Lin, Su Xiaolan, how did you two find this place? Ms. Ao Xiaowu? Why are you here? Both of them spoke at almost the exact same time. Everyone instantly fell silent. This is my vacation spot, Ao Xiaowu said with an angry expression. We saw a tortoise-like mountain and thought that there might be something good in the cave, so we barged in, Su Xiaolan explained. She didn't harbor any ill will toward this beautiful relative of hers, and her attitude toward him was a lot better than that of normal dragon tribe cultivators. You were able to break through the spell formation I set up with great care. Ao Xiaowu stroked her chin as her eyes wandered between Lin and Su Xiaolan, and her pupils contracted slightly. You've progressed to the return to void stage? I was just lucky. Su Xiaolan gave an apologetic smile. So fast. Ao Xiaowu heaved a peculiar sigh. She turned her head and looked into the distance where the sky and water met. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and slowly lay down. She was actually planning to continue sleeping. The sea breeze blew gently. The woman in red was lying on the beach. Her slender legs and arms were spread open. Her exquisite and beautiful body was ruined by the vulgar sleeping posture of the word big. Lin and Su Xiaolan were a little dazed by Ao Xiaowu's sudden decision to sleep. Ao Xiaowu spoke in a lazy voice. All right, don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Of course, you can choose to sleep here with me. Lin, Su Xiaolan, you're basically invincible in the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. Why don't you take this opportunity to obtain the power of dragons? Lin couldn't help but ask. The power of dragons is useless to me. I don't need it anymore, Ao Xiaowu replied in a gentle voice with her eyes closed. So, are you planning to sleep until the end of the ancient Tai Chu Dragon Realm trial? Su Xiaolan asked. Of course, is there anything more comfortable than sleeping? Ao Xiaowu murmured. This is a vacation spot for the ancient Tai Chu Dragon Realm. Don't tell anyone about this. Su Xiaolan stared speechlessly at Salted Fish who was sunbathing. Lin recalled what had happened to Ao Mingyu and Ao Qingyu, and he continued, even if you can't obtain the power of dragons, wouldn't you be able to minimize casualties by protecting them? Ao Xiaowu burst into laughter. Protect them? Why should I protect them? I'm not their nanny. Their lives are their own. Let them play by themselves. This big sister was quite a character. The woman in red lay on the beach and drew circles on the sand with her slender fingers. If I only think about standing up for them, protecting them, venting their anger, and fighting for them, the dragon court will be crippled in less than 10,000 years. Of course, there's a high chance that I'll die as well. Lin and Su Xiaolan had no response to this. Thinking about it, this woman's words were actually quite reasonable. Throughout the long history of the immortal cultivation world, many villains had been destroyed not because the patriarchs had stirred up trouble, but because their underlings had stirred up trouble. Then, the patriarchs had interfered and ended up being killed by the heaven-defying protagonist Wang Ba. Ao Xiaowu could become a stabilizing force for the Dragon Court if she stayed outside of it. Alright, let's end our conversation here. Don't bother me anymore. I have a bad temper, and I'm going to hit you if you wake me up again. Ao Xiaowu cut off the conversation in a very violent manner and went back to her sweet dreams. Enlin and Su Xiaolan fell silent and began to wander around this world. This place is so strange. There's a starry sky and a continent outside, but there's blue sky, white clouds, and an ocean here. It's like they're two different worlds. Su Xiaolan transmitted her voice to Enlin. Could this be a small mystic realm? Enlin raised his head to discover that there was light in this world, but there was no sun, nor could he sense the power of pure yang. Enlin, look! Su Xiaolan suddenly pointed behind her with excitement on her face. Enlin turned around to look at the ceiling of the cave behind him. To his surprise, there was a gigantic tortoise statue there. It was extremely lifelike and lifelike. No, that's not a tortoise. Its head is that of a snake. Enlin discovered something different. Could it be that this is a statue of Xianwu? Su Xiaolan asked curiously. Judging from its appearance and the information in the ancient texts, it was most likely one of the four holy beasts, the holy beast Xianwu. Enlin stroked his chin and suddenly had a whimsical thought. I've been unable to find the statue of the heavenly turtle tribe's ancestor. Could this be it? I feel like the Xianwu and the heavenly turtle tribe have some sort of connection. How about I pay my respects to it and see if some light will fall from it? Su Xiaolan looked at Enlin, who was still empty-handed, and nodded sympathetically. She clenched her fists in encouragement. Good luck! During this period of time, she had received an inheritance, received the power of dragons, and made a major breakthrough. She had reaped many rewards, so she hoped that Enlin could reap some rewards of his own. Enlin was a little uneasy as he imitated the gesture from before and bowed to the statue of Xianwu. However, there was still no reaction from the statue after 3 minutes. The atmosphere was a little awkward. The Xianwu ancestor hasn't seen anyone in a long time. Should we stimulate it? Maybe it's asleep? Su Xiaolan reminded. Stimulate? Enlin's brows furrowed. To awaken a sleeping ancestor, violence is not the way to go. We have to be gentle, he murmured to himself. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the Xianwu's face. Su Xiaolan, you call this gentle? The Xianwu's face was splattered with blood essence, but there was still no reaction. Enlin was very tired. It wasn't easy to find the statue of the heavenly turtle tribe's ancestor, but in the end, wasn't it? Perhaps it can't recognize that you're its descendant? You have to prove that you're a turtle. Su Xiaolan didn't give up, and she raised her opinion. Enlin almost threw up a mouthful of blood. Turtle my A*s. I'm not a turtle. How can I prove that I'm a turtle? That being said, Enlin used his evading turtle technique a minute later. Whoosh! A dazzling turtle shell appeared and attached itself to his body. Enlin looked at the Xianwu with anticipation on his face as he roared in his heart. Xianwu, look over here. Your descendant is here, waiting for your blessing. Rumble, the statue suddenly began to tremble. Immediately afterward, a dazzling pillar of light descended from the sky and crashed onto Enlin's body. A vast and profound Tao intent unique to holy beasts began to flow into Enlin's mind. Enlin was excited. So using the turtle shell really did work. Chapter 1157. The light of Tao intent that descended during the worship was extremely dazzling and powerful. It was more dazzling than any pillar of light that Enlin had ever seen. Perhaps it was because Enlin was the only one paying respects to the ancestor, so it was especially touched? After all, it had slept for so long, and a junior suddenly came to pay respects to it. This would definitely leave a very good impression on the Xianwu. Ao Xiaowu was given a fright by the sudden pillar of light, and she was completely dumbstruck by the sight of the turtle shell, Enlin, and the Xianwu statue. What the hell is going on now? So that's how it is. It really is the descendant of a turtle. Looks like I was right. I didn't allow you to speak, so you sent the Xianwu here to annoy me. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Ao Xiaowu pouted and put on a blindfold before lying back down to sleep. Enlin was still basking in the light of Tao intent from the holy beast Xian Wu. He had already confirmed that this was the power of the Xian Wu. After all, he had come into contact with the power of the vermilion bird, so he knew what the quality of the power of the other four holy beasts was like. This light of true intent allowed him to attain a deeper understanding of the Tao of defense and the Tao of water. He had even attained a new understanding of the evading turtle technique. After a long while, the light of Tao intent finally disappeared completely. Enlin wore an expression of contentment, and even the turtle shell on his body was glowing with a wondrous light. Enlin, how was it? Su Xiaolan made her way over to Enlin, and a fragrant breeze wafted toward him. Awesome! Enlin savored the aftertaste with satisfaction. His turtle shell began to disappear, but he was still reflecting on the Tao intent he had attained. The holy beast vermilion bird was holy, proud, purifying, and passionate. The holy beast Xian Wu was as vast as the ocean, and it was unfathomably profound. He had experienced the powers of both of these holy beasts, so he had finally reaped a huge reward from this trip. Come to think of it, why would a statue of the heavenly turtle tribe ancestor be in the ancient Tai Chu realm? Su Xiaolan was a little confused. Perhaps the heavenly turtle tribe living beings didn't discover this statue, or perhaps they couldn't move it? Enlin speculated. He flew toward the statue and tried to move it away, but he found that the statue was connected to the entire world. It was impossible to move it. This was very strange. However, Enlin and Su Xiaolan were not in the mood to play the game. They wandered around the world but didn't find anything new, so they finally decided to leave this place and continue moving forward. After all, he hadn't found his good disciple, Xiaozi. Ao Xiaowu continued to sleep and ignored the two people who had suddenly left. Enlin carried Su Xiaolan on his brick and continued his search. Not long after, the two of them saw a burning continent. This continent was quite special. There were rows of buildings on it, and they seemed to be towns. There were also many humanoid corpses of evil dragons. Blood-colored flames were burning fiercely. That was an extremely powerful dragon flame. A dragon tribe cultivator went on a killing spree here not too long ago. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed as she analyzed the situation. There really wasn't a single person left alive. Enlin shook his head. Even though the evil dragons of the ancient Tai Chu realm were their sworn enemies, they were still a little disgruntled at the sight of so many ordinary living beings perishing to their flames. Killing was one thing, but slaughtering civilians was an extremely cruel act. The two of them deduced from the signs of battle that this was the doing of a Western Dragon Forest mighty figure. This was not a surprising outcome. The Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas had always been very inconspicuous, and all of their trials in the ancient dragon realm were basically done in vain. Only the Western Dragon Forest's mighty figures were capable of turning a flourishing city of the ancient domain Evil Dragon Realm into such a state. Enlin and Su Xiaolan circled the continent before continuing onward. They flew over one mountain after another and over rivers and plains. They would occasionally encounter one or two dragon tribe powerful beings from the Western Dragon Forest, but they never encountered an evil dragon. 1 hour later, they had arrived at the border of the entire continent. That's right, there was no path up ahead. What greeted their eyes was a boundless expanse of space. Have we arrived at the end of the world? Enlin murmured to himself. Su Xiaolan released a flaming phoenix, which flew toward the starry sky up ahead. About 50 kilometers away, the flaming phoenix suddenly crashed into some kind of barrier, and it exploded violently. There is a power similar to the power of laws at the end of the world that separates the outside world. I don't know if it's a form of protection or a restriction, but living beings are unable to break through it with their own powers. Su Xiaolan's eyes flashed as she turned to Enlin with a smile. Isn't this the other side of the ocean of stars? Enlin couldn't help but smile at the sight of Su Xiaolan's enchanting smile. This is only the end of the world. After this, there are even larger worlds waiting for us to explore. Su Xiaolan held onto Enlin's hand with a firm expression. I'm willing to go to the other ends of the world with you and see the scenery in every corner of it. A certain chord in Enlin's heart was tugged at. He stared blankly at Su Xiaolan, who was like a celestial maiden standing under the moon. The stars are so beautiful tonight. Can't you say something else? Now that they had found a good place, they naturally had to be sweet for a while. In the central region of the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm, a pair of gargantuan golden palms, which seemed to stretch on into the distance, crashed down upon the black lizard dragon, causing space to twist and warp as a resounding boom reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The black dragon's anguished wail had only just erupted. The sound of flesh and bones exploding could be heard. Splat! A return to void stage mighty figure of the western dragon forest fell just like that. A living being that resembled an eastern giant dragon with a pair of golden bat wings on its back activated its purple bead expressionlessly. Hello, ancient dragon empress. The second and third areas have been cleared. Very good. Baofo dragon, you can come back now. The security formation will be within a radius of 5,000 kilometers. A cold and authoritative voice sounded from within the bead. Baofo dragon flapped its wings upon hearing this before flying toward a certain spot in the air at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, in the central region of the Tai Chu continent, several beings with extremely terrifying auras were quickly converging together, at the very center of a cluster of 99 tall mountains that were arranged in a peculiar ring. There was an inky black circular area here, which was completely empty. There was no matter, no light, and there wasn't even the concept of space within this area. It was as if there was truly nothing here. There were tens of thousands of living beings gathered here. Some of them were in the form of dragons, while others were waiting silently off to the side in their human forms. All of them were evil dragons from the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. If the dragon court of the eastern seas and the western dragon forest dragon tribe were to see so many evil dragons gathered here, they would definitely be scared witless. Dark Knight Trident stood among a group of divine battle dragons and tossed his immortal tool, the star dragon eye, into the air, upon which it transformed into a star to survey the surrounding area. A dragon tribe woman in a colorful robe with dragons embroidered on it stood proudly above the inky black circular area. She looked up at the stars in the sky, and her eyes were as clear and pure as glass. This is our last chance. All living beings that enter within a radius of 5,000 kilometers of the formation will be killed without mercy. We are willing to lay down our lives for the sake of breaking through the barrier. All of the divine battle dragons roared in unison, and their voices reverberated through the heavens. Chapter 1158. Within the evil dragon tribe, a little boy with yellow eyes was still tugging on his mother's sleeve. Mom, why is Daddy going to battle as well? Can't spirit-nurturing stage cultivators not participate? The woman stroked the boy's head with a smile and comforted him in a gentle voice. Your father is fighting for our future. Don't worry, your father and the other uncles will work together to use a special formation. Even a demonic dragon of the deity transformation tier will be able to fight. Just as they were speaking, a series of dragon tribe powerful beings rose into the air and flew into the distance. 2,000 of the 30,000 evil dragons rose into the sky, creating an extremely spectacular spectacle. Daddy will come back, right? The boy looked up at the countless dragons with a nervous expression. The woman nodded with a firm expression. He will. He's going to live with us in the new world, so he won't abandon us. The leader of the evil dragons, the ancient dragon empress, was currently standing in the air above the inky black region, looking up at the stars in the sky as she waited for the final moment. Boom! A terrifying power erupted from beyond the starry sky again. Heaven and earth tremored violently. Within the mountains, the 30,000 evil dragons all looked up at the starry sky with expressions of shock and horror. Fear stemmed from the unknown. No one knew what was beyond the starry sky, not even the ancient dragon empress. All they knew was that this was an opportunity for them to break through to the new world. Boom, 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 the collisions became more and more violent. All of the dragon tribe cultivators' hearts were hanging by a thread. At this moment, even the ancient dragon tribe cultivators in the distance had noticed this. Ao Qingyu turned toward a certain direction with a thoughtful expression on his face. Judging from the sound and sensing its aura, could it be that the being that is creating this noise is from the outside world? Long Outyen, who was flying in the opposite direction, suddenly changed direction. Ha ha! It looks very lively over there. I'm sure I'll find a good opponent. Within an inky black forest, Ao Yuetang was hiding in the shadows, searching for a suitable place to land the killing blow. However, upon hearing the terrifying explosion in the distance, she immediately fled in another direction, and a sense of foreboding welled up in her heart. She knew that she had no right to intervene in a battle of that caliber. A massive, opaque ball was bouncing around on the continent. Beside it was a miniature flaming dragon, which was licking an evil dragon bone with both hands. Apollo, there seems to be something interesting over there, the ball said. Little Fire Dragon swallowed the bone and looked into the distance. Don't go. We've already lost 2 top-tier dragon gods, we can't afford any more losses. Hades, we'd better think about how we're going to endure the wrath of the Emperor. The black sphere buzzed, but it didn't say anything. Its attention was focused on the starry sky in the distance. Their conversation did not continue for long before an extremely violent roar suddenly came from afar. What followed was the sound of heaven and earth shattering. It wasn't that something had broken, but that something in the unseen world had broken. At the center of the 99 mountains, the starry sky began to distort and collapse. Ha ha! I'm finally here, I'm finally in this world. The pitch-black claws tore through the sky, and a terrifying and vast aura swept through the world. A pair of golden eyes peered at the continent through the crack. Over 30,000 evil dragons shuddered involuntarily in the face of that terrifying aura. The ancient dragon empress looked up into the golden eyes, and a smile suddenly appeared on her face. You're weaker than I thought. You're returning to your hometown, but little did you know that your hometown will be destroyed because of what you've done today. She splayed open her hands, and a double-headed spear, which was shimmering with countless stars, appeared before her. This spear was a manifestation of the power of the stars, and it twisted space as soon as it appeared, as if it were going to pierce through 2 worlds. The pupils of the ancient dragon empress contracted slightly. The ancient dragon empress clapped her hands together, and the 99 mountains suddenly began to tremor. Immediately afterward, a series of extremely powerful pillars of light soared into the starry sky, creating an extremely massive ceiling formation. You are a returnee from beyond the starry sky. You are the most powerful being in this world, and your bloodline is the most compatible with this continent. It is exactly because of this that you have the right to break through the wall. The spatial cracks continued to split open, and a gargantuan black body began to appear. What are you babbling about, you be *starred? A thunderous voice imbued with boundless dragon might swept through heaven and earth. The ancient dragon empress continued expressionlessly, the dragon tribe that lives here is a cursed tribe. We are pitiful creatures that have been imprisoned in a cage. If we want to escape from this world, we have to pay a heavy price. Roar! The black dragon in the sky blasted a scorching purple breath toward the ancient dragon empress with an extremely impatient expression, twisting and annihilating the space in its wake. The ancient dragon empress was not fearful in the slightest as the pillars of light unleashed by the 99 mountains rose in brightness once again, forming a colorful barrier with a radius of several hundred kilometers, keeping all of the evil dragons at bay. The breath crashed down upon the barrier, and destructive light exploded forth, as if the sun were incinerating the entire sky. However, even in the face of such a terrifying breath, The barrier only tremored slightly, and not even a crack appeared on it. The ancient dragon empress continued with her ceremonial speech. Thankfully, a hole has appeared in the sky of the Tai Chu continent again. The dragon tribe's ancestral worshipping trial is also taking place at a time when the barrier between the two worlds is at its weakest. Your arrival is a coincidence, but it is also inevitable. She began to carve divine symbols in the air with her nimble hands. In order to open up a passageway for us cursed dragon tribe cultivators to escape, we need a mighty pioneer. After all, I'm AB** starred who doesn't even dare to reach the Tao integration stage. Today, I'll use your flesh and blood to help us break through the barrier and escape from this cursed land. The ancient dragon empress finally finished her sentence. Divine symbols had already appeared in the air before her, all of which were glowing with boundless divine light. The divine symbols soared into the sky and instantly pierced through the black dragon's defenses before inscribing themselves onto its gargantuan body, upon which an indescribably terrifying sealing power erupted forth. Roar! What the hell is this? The black dragon unleashed its power of the divine Tao in an attempt to shatter the divine symbols. A faint smile appeared on the ancient dragon empress' face. It's a dragon-slaying talisman. She waved a hand through the air, and a divine light that could pierce through the two worlds instantly erupted forth from her double-headed spear before puncturing the black dragon's body. The black dragon's blood-curdling cries reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The black dragon, which struck fear into the hearts of over 30,000 evil dragons, plummeted from the sky before crashing into the inky black hole at the center of the 99 mountains. The suffocating pressure disappeared, and peace and tranquility returned to the world. We did it! The ancient dragon empress' voice trembled slightly as she stared intently at the darkness beneath her feet. She was unable to disguise the excitement on her face as she awaited the final result. Tens of thousands of evil dragons had already erupted into raucous cheers. At a certain place in the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm, "Unlin, there's a battle going on over there. They've even punctured a hole in the starry sky." Su Xiaolan let loose a cry of surprise. "Don't panic. Let's wait and see. Now is not the time to intervene." Unlin was very calm. After a short while, That black dragon was defeated just like that?" Su Xiaolan murmured to herself. This was clearly the style of a boss, but it had been insta-killed. This was a bit difficult to accept. Unlin shook his head. "Looks like this has nothing to do with us. Let's get away from here." Right at this moment, his storage ring suddenly flashed. Why is my spatial magic box moving?" Unlin was perplexed. This thing had always been lying peacefully in his storage ring, so why was it suddenly reacting? He was a little curious, and he pulled out the spatial magic box from his storage ring. Right at this moment, boom! Heaven and earth tremored violently. The spatial magic box suddenly exploded. Unlin and Su Xiaolan were both knocked flying by the terrifying explosion. A massive black figure appeared from within the dust and debris. Unlin and Su Xiaolan's eyes widened with incredulity. What the hell? Chapter 1159. A gargantuan black body revolved in the air as an aura that was powerful enough to crush the heavens erupted forth, causing the space around it to congeal. This was a gargantuan black dragon. Why did the spatial magic box explode? Why did such a gargantuan black dragon appear after the spatial magic box was destroyed? Unlin recalled the information he had gleaned from using his divine inspection technique back when he was conquering this treasure in Xiao Zhe's home spatial magic box. Xiao Tu's ninth resurrection trump card allows him to be reborn in the magic box after death. Aside from that, it also has the effect of sealing space. Could it be? Unlin's eyes widened as he turned toward the black dragon and drew a sharp intake of breath. You're Xiao Tu? The black dragon panted heavily as it lay on the ground, and its golden eyes suddenly lit up as it turned toward Unlin. Ha ha! So it's you, Mr. Unlin. We sure are fated to meet again here. A dark expression appeared on Unlin's face as he listened to this boisterous and uninhibited laughter. Who the F***ck wants to be fated to meet you? You came here on your own, and you even blew up one of my treasures. Even though this treasure belonged to him in the first place. Su Xiaolan was astonished. Unlin, is this the Xiao Tu you told me about? The one who wanted to die but couldn't and was killed by you in the end? That's right, that's him. He's a dragon tribe mighty figure who has cultivated the Tao of indestructibility. Xiao Tuesday. Unlin looked at the black dragon with a serious expression. Su Xiaolan looked up at the crack in the sky in the distance, then at the black dragon with astonishment on her face. That's right, you guessed right. I am the black dragon who broke through the barrier and came here. F***ck. Who would have thought that I would be killed by that B***th as soon as I got here? Xiao Tu grimaced, as if he was expressing his displeasure. Just as they were speaking, heaven and earth suddenly began to tremor. 99 pillars of light shot into the sky in the extremely far distance, as if they were going to pierce through this entire world. The crack in the starry sky seemed to be unable to hold on any longer, and it was quickly spreading. A certain law seemed to be collapsing, and the barrier of restrictions was broken. Chaotic astral winds escaped from the cracks, and the power of destruction spread throughout the world. Unlin felt that something was wrong. He pointed in that direction and asked, "What are the evil dragons planning to do there?" "They're trying to take advantage of the flaw in the heavens of the Tai Chu continent, my flesh, and the collapse of the barrier to forcefully open up a passageway to the Tai Chu continent." Xiao Tu's rage flared up at the thought of this, and his killing intent threatened to congeal the space around him. They should have succeeded? Su Xiaolan looked in that direction and asked. Although one of my bodies has already been handed over to them, do they really want to succeed? You'll have to ask me, Xiao Tu. The black dragon's body shuddered violently as it rose into the air. You still want to fight? There are so many of them, so why can't we just avoid them first? Unlin felt like Xiao Tu's actions were a little unreasonable. Look at that shattered starry sky. Xiao Tu pointed at the cracks in the sky as he said, if we let things continue like this entire world will be completely destroyed. You've most likely used a similar method to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm to get here. The light of recall hasn't descended yet. If this world is destroyed before the light of recall arrives, will you be able to go back? Unlin and Su Xiaolan immediately came to a realization upon hearing this. We have to stop such inhumane and atrocious acts. Unlin roared with rage. It's our duty to protect the dragon tribe ancestral land. Su Xiaolan also wore a firm expression. Xiao Tu looked at the two of them with a speechless expression. Were they just scared of death? However, there was nothing to be ashamed about. In terms of fear of death, he was the most fearful of the three of them. There's no time to lose. We have to stop the evil dragons right away. Xiao Tu let loose an enraged roar before flying toward the pillar of light in the distance. Unlin and Su Xiaolan followed along. All of the powerful beings from the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas and the Western Dragon Forest had also realized this problem. They looked at the 99 pillars of light in the distance, as well as the cracks that were rapidly spreading in all directions. After a moment of hesitation, they all began to fly in that direction. Slow down, Hades. If you go too fast, you'll be the target of their attacks. There's no time. There's no river Styx here, so if I die, I'll really die. So what if I get attacked? Come at me if you dare. You've gone insane. The shattering of the barrier this time was a worldwide phenomenon. Even the living beings on the fringes of the world could see the destruction on the horizon, as if everything was crumbling and this world was about to come to an end. All of the living beings were in a state of panic. Some fled in all directions, some trembled uncontrollably, and some stared blankly at the direction of destruction. The aura of death and the end enshrouded the entire heaven and earth. A delicate and handsome young man stood on a plain and stared blankly at the sky in the distance. Not only has the land beneath my feet been buried by the passage of time, but even this world is about to disappear as well? Tears welled up in the young man's eyes as he looked up at the shattered heavens. What can I do about all of this? What can my Tao of defense do? No, there are things I can do. I have to survive. Only by surviving and making this world survive can there be any possibility for the future. The young man's dim eyes gradually lit up, as if he had attained enlightenment. Mountains and rivers shattered, laws disappeared, galaxies collapsed, and the world was destroyed in this world of despair and destruction. A young man slowly straightened his back and made his way toward the source of all of this. Bolts of destructive lightning fell, but the young man's footsteps became more and more stable. At the center of the 99 mountains, the ancient dragon empress was standing before the double-headed spear that had pierced through two worlds. Divine light stirred up the absolute darkness down below, and the destructive energy up above was kept at bay by the 99 pillars of light. The formation was extremely silent, and there was a peculiar sense of calm amid the madness. Tens of thousands of evil dragons stared up at the vortex with nervous expressions. I feel like something's not right. The ancient dragon empress turned toward a certain direction, and her crimson eyes narrowed slightly. Why was that black dragon resurrected? The blood sacrifice indicated that it was a success, but right at this moment the purple gem on her waist lit up. Ancient dragon empress, what is it? Dark Knight Trident. There are 12 Return to Void stage mighty figures and 51 Soul Formation stage mighty figures within 5,000 kilometers, among which 5 are Return to Void final stage mighty figures. Can you handle them? The ancient dragon empress asked. We've already located the target, Dark Knight Trident replied. Kill them all, the ancient dragon empress instructed. There were more powerful beings from the dragon court of the eastern seas and the western dragon forest. They had to kill the first group of powerful beings at all costs before more powerful beings arrived. Thus, Enlin, Su Xiaolan, and Xiao Tu encountered 2 evil dragons with extremely terrifying auras before they even got close to the place where the barrier had been broken. Chapter 1160. Even though Dark Knight Trident was only at the Return to Void intermediate stage, he possessed a surveillance satellite, so he was responsible for scouting the entire battlefield. East Sea Dragon King Ao Meng and 5th Prince Ao Qingyu? Then I'll send Duba Evil Dragon and Wu Si Evil Dragon. I'm sure they'll be able to take care of this battle in no time. Hades and Apollo of the Western Dragon Forest are more powerful. Meigui Evil Dragon, Luan Yu Evil Dragon, and Huan Meng Evil Dragon will definitely be able to slay them in no time. That black dragon has only just been reborn, so he shouldn't be very powerful. However, it's a little surprising that he encountered familiar faces. He sent Bao Fo Evil Dragon and Tun Tian Evil Dragon. And Lin. No matter how powerful you are, can you be more powerful than a Return to Void final stage evil dragon? That's right, all 7 of the Emperor's throne dragons were top-rate mighty figures who had attained the power of the Divine Tao, and all of them were going to unleash the most ferocious attacks on their enemies. Dark Knight Trident's expression twisted with rage, and his eyes glowed with the elation of exacting his revenge. His 2 humiliating escapes were going to be the end of this battle. Enlin, Su Xiaolan, and Xiao Tu were stopped by 2 evil dragons with extremely terrifying auras when they were only 2,500 kilometers away from the Pillar of Light. A dragon with golden bat wings descended with rainbow clouds revolving around it, as if it were an extremely holy being. I am Baofu Evil Dragon, and I'd like to invite all of you to die now. This was a flat and fat gray dragon with a pair of tiny wings that were completely disproportionate to its body. Each and every one of its breaths caused space to contract and explode. It opened its gargantuan mouth with a smile. I am Tun Tian Evil Dragon. Say, there's a very beautiful dragon tribe Cultivator, and I'm going to eat her first. Su Xiaolan didn't conceal her dragon tribe bloodline aura, and she silently drew her dragon sparrow sword upon hearing the evil dragon's words. However, she didn't even get a chance to attack. A black dragon tail tore through the air at a shocking speed. Tun Tian evil dragon's expression shifted drastically, and it was just about to do something when an extremely powerful spatial seal enshrouded an area with a radius of several dozen kilometers. Even after unleashing its power of the divine Tao, it was unable to break through this spatial seal in a short time. Bang! The dragon tail crashed into Tun Tian evil dragon's oval-shaped body, crushing it into a U-shape. Just the tail alone was enough to send it crashing into the ground, and the shock waves from the collision caused the ground within a radius of over 50 kilometers to cave in and crack open. What are you blabbering about? I'm going to get out of the way. Xiao Tu had no intention of engaging Tun Tian evil dragon in battle, and he continued to fly toward the ancient dragon empress after slapping it to the ground. But the vast golden light began to flicker in the night sky. The power of great mercy tore through Xiao Tu's spatial seal. Bao Fu evil dragon flew toward Xiao Tu before speaking in an indifferent voice. I told you, all of you are going to die here. Boundless treasure light. Powerful power of the divine Tao erupted forth. The sky was dyed gold, and rays of golden light condensed into substance, intertwining with each other. They descended from the sky to the ground, like a huge bell that enveloped everything inside. Waves of mysterious Sanskrit rang out, like the guiding voice of all living beings. Xiao Tu's body faltered, and in that instant, his consciousness was disrupted. A sense of comfort and bliss welled up in his heart. A gargantuan golden dragon claw fell from the sky with no end in sight. The sky was filled with veined patterns, sealing off all avenues of retreat for the black dragon before crashing down with a resounding boom. Golden claw seal. Boom. Space crumbled as the dragon claw slammed the wailing black dragon into the ground before transforming into a massive golden mountain. It's over, Bao Fu evil dragon said in an indifferent voice. How how how! Help me, it hurts! Tun Tian evil dragon's blood-curdling cries suddenly erupted from the ground below. The crimson golden man was unleashing relentless punches on the evil dragon's oval body, each of which was imbued with extremely terrifying power, and the evil dragon's body caved in and disintegrated. You want to eat my Tao partner? You want to eat my Xiaolan? F***CKU. Unlin rained down punches as he cursed. The dragon sparrow sword howled through the air as sword intent tore through the air. Su Xiaolan slashed one dazzling sword projection after another, slicing Tun Tian evil dragon's flesh and blood into the air. You want to eat me? Come at me. I'm not Su invincible below Tao integration stage Xiaolan if I don't sever your F***king mouth. Su Xiaolan had finally encountered a return to void final stage mighty figure to prove herself, and she immediately unleashed her full power. Each and every one of her sword projections was imbued with the most powerful true intent of the true dragon and the vermilion bird. After Tun Tian evil dragon was bashed into the ground by Xiao Tu, it was immediately bashed into a double team by Enlin and Su Xiaolan, and it was completely dumbfounded. So this is what Dark Knight Trident said? A return to void final stage evil dragon can take care of this threat in a minute? Bao Fu evil dragon's expression darkened with rage. Cold sweat was pouring down Dark Knight Trident's forehead, and he was observing the battle through his satellite. What could he do? Those two humans seemed to be more powerful than he had imagined. However, that shouldn't matter. The black dragon had already been sealed. There were two Emperor's throne dragons, so how could they not take care of two humans? Just as Dark Knight Trident was calming down, a violent explosion erupted in the distance. The black dragon tore through the golden dragon claw seal before rising into the sky and pouncing toward Bao Fu evil dragon. Dark Knight Trident. Battles had already broken out all over the place. Regardless of whether it was the return to void final stage battles, the Return to Void stage battles, or the Soul Formation stage battles, there was no one left. It's alright. Even if we can't take care of them in a short time, we can still hold them off until the other 7 dragons complete their missions, Dark Knight Trident murmured. Aside from the slight mishap on Enlin's battlefield, the battles on all the other battlefields were progressing quite smoothly. None of the powerful beings from the Western Dragon Forest and Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas would have thought that the evil dragons would retaliate in such a ferocious and reckless manner. A Soul Formation Final Stage Divine Guardian Squad powerful being from the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas had only tried to approach the Pillar of Light to survey the situation, but over 200 spirit-nurturing stage evil dragons pounced upon him in a frenzy. Over half of the evil dragons had perished in order to grind the Eastern Dragon to death. A Western Dragon Forest Return to Void stage Divine Guardian Squad powerful being was planning to run away upon seeing that there were too many enemies, only to be chased down by 3 Return to Void stage evil dragons. One of the evil dragons had used a mystic technique to burn its life force to hold it off before beating it to death. Aside from that, Ao Meng, Ao Qingyu, Hades, and Apollo were also engaged in arduous battles. The evil dragons of the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm brought nightmarish experiences to all of the powerful beings who were attempting to set foot in that important place by unleashing their full power and fearless madness. Of course, there was one place where the nightmarish experiences were the complete opposite. Xiao Tu, Enlin, and Su Xiaolan. Their insanity gave 2 evil dragon tribe mighty figures a nightmarish experience. Chapter 1161. Xiao Tu pounced toward the Bao Fo dragon in a frenzy. What I hate the most in my life is being pressed to the ground by other dragons. You're courting death. A series of extremely sharp golden divine Dao swords pierced through Xiao Tu's body, but Xiao Tu was completely unfazed. He flew toward Bao Fo dragon like a streak of black light, and his body immediately began to twist and turn. His massive, inky black body instantly bound the golden-winged dragon, and boundless power swept forth, threatening to pulverize the golden-winged dragon's body into mincemeat. Golden Hymn of the Wisdom. Bao Fo dragon let loose a pained cry as it opened its mouth. It began to chant a series of mystical words. All of a sudden, Xiao Tu was struck by a sense of weakness, disgust, cold, and poison. These were all indiscernible curses. What the **CK are you babbling about? If you're a male dragon, then fight me to your heart's content. Xiao Tu roared as an inky black divine light erupted from his body. The divine light suddenly contracted before exploding violently. Boom! Heaven and earth tremored violently in that instant. Xiao Tu suddenly exploded, and destructive energy swept forth for several dozen kilometers. Bao Fo dragon and Xiao Tu both let loose blood-curdling cries. However, Xiao Tu's blood-curdling cries were interspersed with elation. Ha ha! How do you feel? Do you feel like you're on the brink of death? Explode again! Boom! Another wave of terrifying energy exploded. Su Xiaolan and Enlin, who were beating up Tun Tian evil dragon in the distance, were both knocked flying by the shockwaves of the explosion. Xiao Tu lay on the ground with blood flowing from his wounds, but he still wore a smile on his face. Beside him was the charred and riddled Bao Fo dragon. Bao Fo dragon convulsed as it spoke with difficulty. You really are a lunatic. Do you want to die? Xiao Tu's wounds were healing at a rate discernible to the naked eye, and he stood up with a sinister smile on his face. Sorry to disappoint you, but I cultivate the Tao of indestructibility. You might die from this type of self-detonation, but I definitely won't die. Explode again. Bao Fo dragon. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion erupted. Senior Xiao Tu's battle is progressing very smoothly. We have to hurry up, Enlin said. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes. Senior Xiao Tu looks like he's about to explode himself, and you call that smooth? As they spoke, the two of them continued to hammer Tun Tian evil dragon. Tun Tian Evil Dragon had been severely wounded by Su Xiaolan and Enlin's ferocious pummeling as it had underestimated its enemies. Roar. Absorbing Star's great art, Tun Tian Evil Dragon decided to go all out, and it suddenly opened its massive mouth. This huge mouth took up half the size of its body. It was deep and dark inside the mouth, like a black hole that could devour everything. A terrifying suction force also erupted at this moment. The star engulfment technique was Tun Tian Evil Dragon's proudest technique. It could suck a target into the internal world of its body before slowly crushing them and converting their energy into nutrients for itself. All of a sudden, the space outside the massive mouth twisted and contracted like a funnel. The air, the animals, the plants, the soil, the rocks, everything within its range was engulfed. Su Xiaolan let loose a shrill cry as she was dragged toward the massive mouth by the suction force of the star engulfment technique. After all, this was a spell technique imbued with Tun Tian Evil Dragon's power of the divine Tao. A white figure flashed past her before arriving before Tun Tian Evil Dragon. A golden eye insignia appeared on Enlin's forehead, and golden ripples began to proliferate outward. Divine Plunder Technique. Thankfully, Tun Tian Evil Dragon had yelled out the name of the technique when it unleashed it. Enlin instantly located this star engulfment technique amidst the vast sea of spell techniques. In that instant, Tun Tian Evil Dragon felt as if it had lost something. The terrifying suction disappeared in an instant. Its mouth was still wide open, but it had forgotten how to suck. Enlin and Su Xiaolan hovered in front of the massive mouth, staring blankly at Tun Tian Evil Dragon. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Enlin examined the star engulfment technique and discovered that the prerequisite for this spell technique wasn't very high. Aside from power, one also had to possess a passable internal space to unleash this spell technique. He discovered that he had the right to unleash this spell technique. Without any hesitation, Enlin opened his mouth and unleashed the star engulfment technique. Tun Tian Evil Dragon was completely dumbstruck. What's going on? How could you know my howl? It let loose a wail of anguish as its massive body was enshrouded by a spatial vortex, which twisted and warped like a liquid before flying toward Enlin's mouth and disappearing into his throat. Everything had happened extremely quickly, and Enlin was standing right in front of Tun Tian Evil Dragon, so Tun Tian Evil Dragon didn't even have a chance to react before it was sucked into Enlin's mouth. Burp, Enlin burped. Su Xiaolan was completely dumbstruck. You swallowed such a disgusting dragon into your stomach? Enlin, was it important whether the dragon he swallowed looked good or not? This was AF** Ketup world. If you were ugly, you would be despised even if you were swallowed into a dragon's stomach. Thank God he was handsome. This spell technique doesn't swallow the other party into its stomach. Instead, it swallows it into its internal space, Enlin explained. Internal space? Su Xiaolan cocked her head to the side and pondered momentarily. You mean the sea of vital energy? Enlin chuckled. That's right. I'm going to torture this stupid dragon to death in my sea of vital energy. Within the sea of vital energy, Tun Tian Evil Dragon looked at the vast expanse of white vital energy before finally coming to a realization, and it roared with rage. Enlin, have you thought about the consequences of stealing my spell technique? Hee, do you think you'll be fine just because you've trapped me here? I'm going to tear your sea of vital energy apart and sever your Tao foundation. It roared as the power of the engulfment and destruction divine Tao erupted forth, trying to turn heaven and earth on its head. If Enlin couldn't take it anymore, he would naturally let it out. All of a sudden, a dazzling bolt of golden void lightning tore through its power of the divine Tao and punctured its fleshy body. Howl! Tun Tian Evil Dragon howled with anguish. This was no ordinary golden void lightning. Instead, it was golden void lightning, which seemed to have been born from heaven and earth, and was imbued with the power of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Tun Tian Evil Dragon was astonished, and it turned toward the direction in which it was being attacked, upon which its expression changed drastically as if it had seen a ghost. "What the hell is that?" There was a miniature golden person in its sea of vital energy. Tun Tian, evil dragon's imagination was completely shattered. That's right, the one who had attacked it was none other than Enlin's fake child, Ankiran. Ankiran was a miraculous being that could even resonate with divine lightning, so how could his lightning be ordinary? After putting on a Kiran blood jade t-shirt and shorts and absorbing a few waves of divine lightning, the power of his lightning was several times more fearsome than when Enlin unleashed his full power. Not taking into account anything else, it was a piece of cake for him to break through the power of the divine Tao of normal mighty figures. Ankiran was extremely displeased with Tun Tian evil dragon's opening gambit, and he let loose an enraged squeak before pouncing toward Tun Tian evil dragon. Tun Tian evil dragon was also a vicious dragon, and after quickly accepting the fact that there was a miniature golden person in its sea of vital energy, it also roared as it pounced toward Ankiran. "I don't care who you are, die." However, right at this moment, holy flames imbued with the power of the vermilion bird suddenly fell upon its head like a waterfall, incinerating its entire body. Tun Tian evil dragon's entire body was charred black, and it trembled uncontrollably. It raised its head with a blank expression before looking up at the flaming vermilion bird in the sky with tears welling up in its eyes. "What the f***ck is this now? The miniature golden person, then the flaming vermilion bird, had it entered a fake sea of vital energy?" Chapter 1162. Ankiran didn't give Tun Tian evil dragon a chance to doubt its existence. He hurtled toward Tun Tian evil dragon with his fists in front of him and his feet behind him. Extremely terrifying lightning revolved around his body, making him appear as if he were a humanoid lightning sword that was stabbing toward Tun Tian evil dragon's body. Tun Tian evil dragon unleashed its most powerful breath toward Ankiran. Ankiran transformed into a sword that was insanely sharp, and it tore through the dragon's breath energy before piercing through Tun Tian evil dragon's mouth with an unstoppable force and puncturing its heart with a series of punctures. Tun Tian evil dragon howled in anguish as blood splattered into its sea of vital energy. "How could this be? How could I be defeated by a golden humanoid? This is impossible. I won't allow this." A crimson light suddenly erupted from Tun Tian evil dragon's eyes, and it let loose an enraged roar as the power of the divine Tao erupted forth to materialize a small black sword that could engulf all things. The small black sword was imbued with the full power of the divine Tao unleashed by Tun Tian evil dragon, and it was extremely fast, leaving a trajectory even faster than lightning in its sea of vital energy before instantly puncturing Ankiran's body. Bam! Ankiran exploded from the impact of that sword strike. Tun Tian evil dragon chortled with glee. "Do you know how powerful I am now? No matter what kind of strange creature you are, it's all. Holy f***ck. It didn't even get a chance to finish its sentence before golden lightning began to appear at the spot where Ankiran had exploded before materializing into an extremely enraged golden humanoid with its hands on its hip. Tun Tian evil dragon's mouth gaped open in astonishment as it stared at the scenes unfolding before its eyes. It can still revive? Do you have to bully a dragon like this?" Tun Tian evil dragon was on the verge of breaking down. That was an attack that had expended a vast amount of energy. It had finally slain the golden humanoid, only to discover that it had an infinite number of lives? How the f***ck was it supposed to fight? Tun Tian evil dragon didn't even have a chance to catch its breath before something even more devastating happened. The flaming vermilion bird circling in the sky above also joined in on the hunt for it. After fusing with the power of Su Xiaolan's vermilion bird divine lightning, the flaming vermilion bird's holy flame had undergone a transformation. It now possessed the power to incinerate space as well as the power of lightning. Perhaps the vermilion bird really did want to practice, so it forced Tun Tian Evil Dragon to flee. In Enlin's Chi-Si, the power of the flaming vermilion bird and Enkiran could be maximized, so it was a piece of cake for them to take care of a severely wounded evil dragon. In an instant, holy flames roared and lightning exploded. His sea of vital energy surged violently amid Tun Tian Evil Dragon's anguished wails. The time limit for the divine plunder technique was 10 minutes. However, in Enlin's sea of vital energy, Tun Tian Evil Dragon couldn't even last 10 minutes before it was tortured to death by Enkiran and the flaming vermilion bird. In the final moments of its life, Tun Tian Evil Dragon's face was filled with indignation and despair. Enkiran wrote over 300 words of unwillingness. The holy flame vermilion bird wrote the word despair, and there were more than 200 of them. The confrontation and competition between the two had extended to the fight against foreign enemies. Enkiran was slightly better in this contest, perhaps because the lightning was a little faster. Thus, Tun Tian Evil Dragon's face was filled with over 300 expressions of indignation and 200 expressions of despair. In the midst of humiliation and despair, its life force was completely ravaged by the terrifying lightning and flames, thus ending its tragic life. Enlin felt like this was a very significant event. Tun Tian Evil Dragon was the first living being to die in his sea of vital energy, and this was the first time he had encountered something like this. He didn't know if this would lead to any strange changes. The sea of vital energy within his body began to break down Tun Tian Evil Dragon's body into its most basic form of energy before fusing into his sea of vital energy. This energy was extremely vast, and it almost doubled the size of his sea of vital energy. Not only that, but there was also a peculiar power rising up from his sea of vital energy before reciprocating into Enlin's flesh, blood, bones, and meridians. This is the power of dragons. Enlin let loose a cry of surprise. He could feel that his body was imbued with the resilience of the dragon tribe, and his blood had also become extremely abundant. This was even more satisfying than swallowing a few high-rank immortal pills in quick succession. Not only that, but even his consciousness was imbued with a unique dragon might. You obtained the power of dragons? Su Xiaolan also turned to Enlin with astonishment on her face. You don't have a dragon tribe bloodline, but you were able to obtain the power of dragons? That's right. Enlin nodded before stretching his body with an elated expression. My sea of vital energy has a function similar to your dragon tribe bloodline, which allows me to absorb the power of my enemies after they die. I've already killed Tun Tian Evil Dragon in my sea of vital energy, and its power has already fused into my body. It's just a pity that this method can only be used once. Su Xiaolan's eyes widened. Tun Tian Evil Dragon really died in his sea of vital energy? And it was digested as the power of dragons? She slapped her delicate little face in an attempt to calm herself down. She had already witnessed all of Enlin's miraculous feat. However, Enlin had once again refreshed her outlook on cultivation. Return to Void final stage mighty figures really are extraordinary. I feel like I've been elevated to a higher level. Enlin was filled with energy after devouring Tun Tian Evil Dragon's power, and he really wanted to fight. Boom! Another extremely terrifying explosion erupted. Enlin and Su Xiaolan turned their eyes toward the mushroom cloud in the distance, and they fell silent as they listened to Xiao Tu's pained yet elated laughter. Su Xiaolan, Senior Xiao Tu, he's still exploding? Enlin, he looks like he's having a lot of fun. The explosion gradually dissipated. A huge golden dragon lay on the ground. Its golden wings had been blown away, and its body was in tatters. Most importantly, its aura had been completely severed. Bao Fo Dragon, one of the 7 dragons on the Emperor's throne, had fallen. A huge black dragon lay beside the huge golden dragon. There was not a single part of its body that was unscathed, but it was still alive. Instead, it panted heavily as it chortled with glee. See, no matter how hard I try, I'm still the one who survives. No one replied to its words. Bao Fo Dragon had already been reduced to a corpse. A vast burst of dragon power began to appear before flowing into Xiao Tu's body. Holy F***ck. What the hell is this? How did I become more powerful? Xiao Tu's expression shifted drastically. Senior Xiao Tu, this is the law of heaven and earth of the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm. As long as you're a dragon tribe cultivator, you'll be able to obtain a portion of their dragon power by killing them, Unlin explained as he flew toward Xiao Tuesday. It looked like Xiao Tu had never been to this place after the upheaval. Really? Sure enough, Xiao Tu's expression was filled with astonishment. He then seemed to have realized something, and he yelled, "Don't come any closer! Get the F***ck out of my way, you accursed dragon power! I've finally repressed my cultivation base, and if you keep entering my body like this, I'm going to break through to the Dao integration stage. You're screwing me over. F***ck off, you detestable dragon power." Unlin. Su Xiaolan. Chapter 1163. For some reason, Unlin and Su Xiaolan were struck by the urge to beat the crap out of Xiao Tu after hearing his word. This was the first time they had seen a dragon that disdained the power of dragons so much. "If you don't want it, then give it to me. Speaking of which, Mr. Unlin, I didn't think you would grow so quickly. I only thought you were very exceptional in the past, but now, I'm beginning to suspect that you're some super bad *SS mighty figure in disguise." Xiao Tu wore a pained expression as he absorbed the power of dragons. "I'm actually Pangu." Unlin smiled. "Don't lie to me. I've seen Pangu, and he doesn't flex as much as you do," Xiao Tu said. "Unlin, and your Dao partner as well. This is the first time I've seen such an exceptional dragon tribe descendant." Xiao Tu continued to praise Su Xiaolan. "You're far too kind, senior." Su Xiaolan spoke in a modest manner, but she was secretly ecstatic. She felt a sense of accomplishment from being praised by a dragon tribe ancestor. Unlin chuckled. "My Dao partner is naturally exceptional. She says she's invincible below the Dao integration stage, so how could she not be exceptional?" Su Xiaolan. Xiao Tu faltered slightly upon hearing this and didn't know what to say. Were all juniors so full of themselves these days? After absorbing the power of dragons, Xiao Tu's injuries had mostly healed, and he had also swallowed a regenerative immortal pill, so he could continue to fight. Everyone continued to fly toward the pillars of light. In a situation like this, every second was extremely precious, and they couldn't afford to waste any time. At the center of the 99 pillars of light, the ancient dragon empress expression suddenly shifted with a hint of grief and incredulity. "Bao Fo and heaven-devouring dragon are dead?" The 7 emperor's throne dragons were the most powerful beings of the evil dragon tribe, but not a single enemy dragon had perished while 2 of their own had perished. Dark Knight Trident. "You have to give me an explanation." The ancient dragon empress was unable to repress her rage, and her dragon might erupted into the heavens, making even Dark Knight Trident tremble uncontrollably with a sense of asphyxiation. "Dragon Emperor, you really can't blame me for this. The enemy is too strange. Let me tell you." Dark Knight Trident recounted the battle between Enlin, Su Xiaolan, and Xiao Tu to the ancient dragon empress. In all honesty, he was completely dumbstruck by what he saw. It was bizarre, insane, and inexplicable. In other words, the 3 of them were demons. Tun Tian Evil Dragon had been devoured to death, while Bao Fo Evil Dragon had been killed by the enemy's self-detonation. No dragon would dare to believe such a thing. Thankfully, the ancient dragon empress believed him. She gazed at a certain direction in the sky, where 3 powerful beings were flying over at high speed. Sigh. Do I have to step in after all? The ancient dragon empress heaved a forlorn sigh. You can't. Dark Knight Trident urged in an urgent voice. Dragon Emperor, you are the hope of our entire race. Your Tao cannot be sullied. Using your power of the divine Tao in this broken and cursed world will destroy your chances of successfully completing the Tao integration stage. I'll immediately send the other battle emperors to stop those enemies. The ancient dragon empress voice was imbued with unquestionable authority. Dark Knight Trident, are you trying to kill all of the battle dragons on the Dizwa continent? Dark Knight Trident shuddered, and his tightly clenched fists trembled uncontrollably, but he didn't dare to say anything. He knew how much the ancient dragon empress was going to sacrifice for the sake of her entire race. The empress that he had admired since he was a child was now going to abandon the path that she had pursued for her entire life. The ancient dragon empress looked down at the 30,000 dragon tribe cultivators gathered within the black vortex. "I'll be right back." Her body suddenly disappeared as she spoke. Over 500 kilometers away, Anlin, Su Xiaolan, and Xiao Tu's bodies suddenly faltered. A dragon tribe woman in a rainbow imperial robe had appeared before them. The dragon tribe woman had beautiful features, and her eyes were as bright and translucent as rubies. She had a pair of translucent white dragon horns on her head, and she had a pair of illusionary wings on her back. Xiao Tu flared up with rage at the sight of this woman. This woman was the enemy that had taken his life. She was also the leader of the ancient Tai Chu dragon tribe in the ancient Tai Chu dragon realm, the ancient dragon empress. You dared to kill me once, so I'll grant you death as well." Xiao Tu let loose an enraged roar, and his massive dragon body surged as his tail imbued with the power of the divine Tao swept toward the ancient dragon empress like an enraged slap. The ancient dragon empress wings flapped slightly, and her body drifted away like clouds and mist. Xiao Tu's attack missed, and he swung his tail into thin air. "I've already sealed the space, but she can still escape so quickly?" Xiao Tu's brows furrowed. In the next instant, Su Xiaolan's expression shifted drastically, and she immediately positioned her sword in front of her. The ancient dragon empress body flashed toward Su Xiaolan, and her hand transformed into a white dragon claw that tore through space before striking the dragon sparrow sword with an extremely terrifying might. Boom! An indescribably terrifying power erupted forth. Su Xiaolan was knocked flying along with her sword. The ancient dragon empress brows furrowed slightly. She had initially planned to kill the weakest opponent first, but the woman in the jade dress was able to withstand her attack? Xiaolan! Anlin's entire body was crimson golden in color, and he tore through space like a fiery meteor. Energy continued to accumulate in his arm, and it became extremely dazzling. Anlin launched a fist toward the ancient dragon empress, who was attacking Su Xiaolan. 3 times, Qilin arm fire god fist. After absorbing the power of a return to void final stage dragon, Anlin's fire god fist was even more powerful. The ancient dragon empress moved extremely quickly, and her other dragon claw tore through space at the same time before clashing with Anlin's fire god fist. Boom! The space within a radius of over a kilometer instantly crumbled. The ground within a radius of over 10 kilometers was reduced to dust. A crisp crack erupted from the ancient dragon empress dragon claw, and her body was knocked flying back by the monstrous force. Her expression shifted again, and a hint of surprise flashed through her eyes. "Ha ha! Well done, Mr. Anlin." A black shadow suddenly appeared, obscuring all avenues of escape for the ancient dragon empress. Death Dragon Bind. Xiao Tu's body wound itself around the ancient dragon empress, and all of the space around him twisted and warped as his power of the divine Tao transformed into inky black chains that enshrouded the ancient dragon empress like an inescapable net. "Have a taste of the wonders of explosions with me." Xiao Tu chortled with glee. Death explosion. Boom! Another destructive mushroom cloud rose up from the ground. Xiao Tu's self-detonation was extremely terrifying, and it was powerful enough to severely wound a return-to-void final stage mighty figure. Those with weaker defenses could even be killed on the spot. Ah! Xiao Tu's blood-curdling cries began to erupt. However, this time, there was no hint of elation in his voice. Boom, boom, boom. This was the sound of some kind of energy crashing into one another. Anlin and Su Xiaolan turned toward the location where the battle had erupted. A gargantuan black dragon was struggling with all its might on the ground, and a rainbow evil dragon exuding terrifying energy fluctuations was riding atop the black dragon's body. A pair of rainbow fists materialized on the dragon's long body, and they hammered the black dragon relentlessly. Each and every one of the fists landed, blood and flesh flew through the air, and bones were shattered. In the end, boom! Xiao Tu's head was blasted apart, and his vitality was severed. Anlin, Su Xiaolan,